Canadienne. All tides proud to support Canadian swimming. Air Canada, transporteur aérien officiel des essais olympiques et paralympiques. Air Canada, official airline of the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic swimming trials.
I have a disability, but I'm not fragile. My first big hit was a rush. It made me feel alive in a way only sports can. Because of partners like Vel, I get to feel it on the world stage. And now I get to share that feeling with the next generation.
And here we go. This is day 5 preliminaries. Welcome back, everybody. The 2024 Bell Olympic and Paralympic Trials presented by Bell. I am Jason Pratt. With me again, Brittany McLean for the call this morning.
We are excited to get day 5 underway, but we cannot leave out some of the highlights from last night, Jason. That was an electric night in the pool.
Absolutely an incredible performance. You can see Summer McIntosh there. She was the world record holder in the 400 AMA 425.8, and last night, she absolutely demolished her own mark.
And it really was the difference in that breaststroke, Jason. The first 200, she was right on the pace, and you could see the elation out of mom and dad. The breaststroke is where she made the difference, and that has come from a lot of training and racing different. I've seen her individually swim the 100 breaststroke, the 200 breaststroke at different competitions. So when we talk throughout these preliminaries about athletes doing events a little bit off of their main schedule, that's exactly why. And of course, Summer McIntosh in a league of her own, of course, but the example is there, and this stage has been set. I truly don't know what she is capable. There aren't a ceiling, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. There isn't a ceiling out for Summer. I don't even know what she's capable of. I lost a bet last night that had me jumping in the diving well because I really didn't think this week was when she was going to set the world record, and she just set it by a second and a half. Crazy.
It was absolutely incredible. And it's just like you said, Brittany, you see these athletes preparing with different races in the morning, and we saw her trying and testing out some of those different aspects of that, what later came out in the world record, particularly on the breaststroke in the morning. So any chance to swim is a chance to learn and a chance to do something no one in the world has ever done before if you're Summer McIntosh. So great swims last night. As we get underway with this morning session, we're starting out with the 50-meter backstroke for the women. This is a para multi-class event. One heat.
And this event is swum by athletes classified S2 through S5. Neither of these 3 ladies have yet to get under that A qualifying standard, so this is a really great opportunity to try to get close. We have 2 returning Paralympians in Ali Van Wyk-Smart in lane 3, Nikita Enns in lane 5. Of course, all 3 of these athletes have been on various different international teams, but this is a really good shot if they want to try to get on the Paralympic roster.
So that Paralympic team starting to shape up as we're through 4 days of finals complete. That A standard that you talk about, pretty challenging cut to make, but we've already got a few of them under it.
Yeah, we have 9 athletes as of now, and we'll continue to update you through the morning, but 9 athletes under that standard as of day number 4, so 3 full days to go. They can take up to 22. That would be 15 women and 7 on the men's side.
Here we go at the end of the first, our only heat of the women's 50-meter backstroke para multi-class, and 57.29 is the winning time for Hannah Ouellette. Swims as an S5 class athlete.
This is a great race coming to the finish. They're the same classification, these 2.
Lanes 5 and 3. It looks like 5 to the wall now. 112.23. That's Nikita Enns from the Saskatoon Lasers.
And she looks happy with that.
Ali Van Wyk-Smart. In for Whitney, in for 3rd.
And their time for the S3 category is 110.06 for the A, so they're within striking distance. It's definitely not out of reach, just a few more seconds drop, but you just saw Ali Van Wyk-Smart coming into the wall there. She trains out of this very pool with Dawn Burton at the High Performance Center here at the Pan Am pool.
And Enns, she's been underneath that standard. She's got a C time of 110.02, so perhaps we'll see her there underneath that cut tonight in this evening's finals. Getting ready for our next event. This is the men's 50-meter backstroke. And we have 1 athlete this morning, and we'll talk a little bit about him, Sebastian Masabi.
Yes,
great meet so far.
Yeah, Sebastian was one of the athletes last night that got his official standby pass. So that really means he was under that A cut, but we do have to wait until Sunday to be officially naming that team. He had a really great performance last night in the 100 freestyle, and he set a Canadian record in the morning. So here we'll get to see him in the 50 backstroke. The S4 time to qualify under the A standard is a 44.54. So his Canadian record in this actually is a 55.02, so quite a big drop.
So a bit of a drop that will be needed here by Sebastian Masabi, but he's been putting up some great times, some best times all week already. So we'll see what he can do here. As Brittany said, he's a Canadian record holder in this event. Time of 55.02 seconds. He swims in the S4 class.
And it is important to note that once athletes are on the roster, unlike in the Olympic program and the Paralympic program, they can swim events that they have the minimum qualifying time in, which Sebastian is right on. So there is a chance that he could still swim this event even if not under that A standard.
So 44 seconds is that A standard. Masabi, the Canadian record holder in the S4 at 55.02, representing Pacific Sea Wolves. And into the wall is Masabi, 53.74. It's a new Canadian record.
An awesome drop there for him. And you can see we've woken up the crowd here at T-Pass. So that is awesome. Another second off his lifetime best, entered with a 55.02. Now a new Canadian record in a 53.74.
So great swims continue for Sebastian Masabi.
And what a cool story. I mean, he was only classified a few months ago, came out of nowhere, truly sets a world record in Indianapolis at the last classification competition. And then since has been pretty much setting Canadian records every time he swims.
So some excellent swimming there. As we get ready and get underway with our next event, event number 17, this is the women's 100-meter freestyle individual spots on the line, as well as the all-important relays. The qualifying time 53.61, and we've had a little bit of shifting around as we've had some scratches in this event leading into this morning's preliminaries.
Yeah, Jason, I'm calling this the event of last chances. It is quite a few of our veterans' final shot at trying to qualify for this Paris Olympic roster. And coming into the circle seeded heats, we're going to see names like Rebecca Smith, Penny Alexiak, Kat Savard, Taylor Ruck. She still has a 50 free though, so I am holding on to considering this a last chance for her, but I do agree, Taylor Ruck, this is a really big opportunity, and she's looked strong so far. A little bit off in the 100 backstroke qualification. She was under the standard actually, but finished third, and as you know, we only get 2 spots per event per country. So unfortunately does not get to compete in that event at the games, but it shows that she's in good form here in Toronto.
And why is that getting a relay spot so important? And I think you would agree with me, if you look back in the last number of years, Canada has done very well in the women's 4x100-meter freestyle relay internationally.
Yeah, if you are on that relay, you are fighting for a podium at the Olympic Games, so you do not take that position lightly. Also now with the depth in our racing in this country, we have the ability to have prelim swimmers and rest some of our big names. We have the opportunity to put together a team of up to 6 and not just a team of 4 that we're sometimes used to, so lots to look forward to.
Good finish here in our first heat. Lane number 7, 57.72, Rowan Bagloy from Whitby Swimming. A good drop by more than a full second for her. Taking out heat number 1, a time of 57.72. As we mentioned, that Olympic qualifying time at 53.61. So we've had a few people underneath that cut in their swimming history. And of course, Penny Alexiak, the Canadian record holder, time of 52.59 that she did at the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. We'll see her competing here a little bit later. Bit of a quick start there. At least one of our competitors. We'll see what happens as the second heat gets underway. Milena Koshik in lane number 4, University of Calgary. She's the top seed in heat number 2, a 58.43. Already saw a big drop from one of our swimmers in heat number 1, 57.72. Rowan Bagloy from Whitby Swimming.
And these relay events are going to continue to get more and more complicated as the day goes on, because as notably mentioned by Jason, we have a few scratches in here, one of them being Summer McIntosh. that isn't completely shocking to all of us. I think this wasn't an event we expected she swim individually, so for her to race this was simply to put herself in a good position to be on a relay. I think last night's race put her in a pretty good position to be considered for any relay. It'll just depend on her schedule and her load management, but another name that will be missing is Maggie McNeil. She's chosen to just swim the butterfly here this week, but she has been under that Olympic qualifying time within the last month at least, so she can still be considered for those relay spots.
So there we go with heat number 2. Kelly Choi, Kelowna Aquajets, 57.71, winning time, a new best for her. I do feel the anticipation building as we're moving towards these seeded heats, Brittany. As you said, last chance for some of these swimmers. We've got 8 heats. This is heat number 3 coming in, and get into the circle seeded heat starting in number 6.
And we really haven't had a chance to, relax as swim fans, because every race there's been something different to look forward to, and that's what's really exciting about swimming right now in this country is whether it's a team of depth, or it's a race for a new Olympic spot, or it's a fresh junior that has a lifetime best, or a 13-14 age group record. We've seen highlights really across the board here.
You know, I was really impressed last night with the camaraderie amongst the men. At the end of that 4x, it's not 4x, but looking at what would presumably be our 4x100 meter freestyle relay with our top 3 with Kissel, with Liendo, and I mean, not maybe a bit of a surprise. We saw Finley Knox also under that Olympic qualifying time in for the bronze. Great swimming for Canadian men to have the top 3 underneath the Olympic qualifying time in the 100 freestyle. That bodes very well for the future of the men's program.
Yeah, and it is the first time ever that we've had 4 men under 49 seconds. So they came 4th at the last Olympic Games, and I got the chance to chat with them last night, and that medal is definitely on their mind. They want to be able to change the narrative away from only talking about the women's relays to start talking about our men's relays.
Heat number 3 is won in a time of 57.22. That's Swim Ottawa's Molly Barber. It's a drop by more than a second, so again, some good swims here by our women in the early heats, going some best times and winning through the first 3 heats.
I also love the thumbs up. It's just like a nice little gesture up to the crowd. Okay, I'm happy.
Well, as you know, probably our sort of best time celebration winning moment came in one of those 800 meter freestyles in the men's. We'll see if we get somebody can match that post-race celebration. After watching those earlier, or I guess towards the end of our session yesterday. Very excited swimmers, as they well should be, with best times this morning as heat number 4 gets underway. The top seed is Alexia Kovaluk in lane number 4 from Camo. She's entered in 57.19, so that is faster than any of the times that we've seen already up on the scoreboard.
A couple of our young junior national team members, Layla Orovsky and Madison Krieger in lane 1 and 2.
And it is Abigail Williams in lane number 3 out in a time of 27.53 from Hyack. She's first of the 50 wall. Williams comes in with a sea time of 57.24. With less than 25 meters to go in this 4th heat now.
You got to keep an eye on this final 10 meters. The goal of each of these athletes, try not to take too many breaths. This is the final push. You want your head down.
Good finish out of lane number 5. Peyton Kelly, Cascade Swim Club, 56.61. It's the best time by more than a half second for her. She wins heat number 4. It's the fastest time so far this morning in the prelims.
Really strong swim there.
And so with the scratches that we've seen, it does bump up Mary Sophie Harvey into the top seed overall with a 54.26. See her in the very last heat, heat number 8. She has been having a fantastic meet all week long, hasn't she, Brittany?
Yeah, and she is another really good example of versatility. I mean, we could have seen her last night in the 400 IM. We could have seen her in some of the stroke 200s. She has to really manage her schedule like McIntosh does and decide with coaches what the strategy is. If we looked a couple of years ago, we probably wouldn't have put Mary Sophie in a position as an individual swimmer in this race. But now coming in as the top seed, as you mentioned, this might fit in her program. She might be our best sprinter, especially after watching that 200 free, a 155.4. That sets her up really nicely here for the 100.
So we will see Harvey in heat number 8 as we get underway with heat number 5. First through the 50 wall, Julia Elbley from Toronto Swim Club. She's in lane number 5. 26.94 is her split time. Ebley entered in a 56.87. We saw 56.61 by Peyton Kelly from the Cascade Swim Club in heat number 4. That is our session leading time as we come to the close of heat number 5. Pretty strong in lane number 2. That's Dylan Scholes from Markham making her move. And it is Scholes, 56.35. Underneath the C time by more than a half second, winning heat number 5. So here we go with our first of our last 3 seeded heats. Number 1 seed in heat number 6 is Taylor Ruck.
Yeah, and Taylor Ruck, what a story over the last couple of years. I mean, she's gone through some injuries, she's missed some national teams, but similar to Alexiak, she's always kind of there when it matters most. Rio 2016, she won 2 medals in the 4x1 free and the 4x2 free. Tokyo 2020, she won a silver in the 4x1 free and a bronze in the 4x1 medley. She, again, making her a 4-time Olympic medalist. She also has 8 World Championship medals, and now she's training at ASU with their pro program. Of course, actually being raised in Arizona. That's nice for her to be able to be back home.
So Ruck has a lifetime best of 52.7. She's also been 51.72 on the relay. She is the 6th fastest woman of all time on the relay, and that's why she's been such an important mix with that women's 4x100 freestyle over the last number of years.
Right, and I think it's important, you know, when Ruck is on, she is on. She has this electric energy. She rides the water so well. She's very tall and uses that to her advantage, as you can see here, flipping first at the 50.
Yeah, 26.27 on the way out. She's out by 0.2 of a second in front of Catherine Savard in lane number 5. Savard also a relay international medalist for Canada. Looking good there in lane number 5. It's War Ruck, 5 Savard.
Yeah.
5 meters left to go, and it is Taylor Ruck with the advantage as she comes into the wall. It's Ruck, 55.23. For second, it's lane number 3, Ella Jensen. Good swim for her, 55.54. Savard is third at 55.58. Pretty tight on those first 4 competitors here in heat number 6.
And Jansen, this is another opportunity here. She has been just on the outside looking in, just under what she needed to be on that 4x200 free relay spot, but also in the 400 IM yesterday. So to have a great swim this morning is really encouraging. Again, Kat Savard there trying to make her 4th Olympic team, to be the first female swimmer to ever do it. She's been to 13 World Aquatics Championships.
Wow. And speaking of decorated female athletes, Penny Alexiak in lane number 4, Canadian record holder in this event. Olympic champion in the 100-meter freestyle from 2016.
And of course, the most decorated Canadian Olympian. So you pulled right into that one. We also have Rebecca Smith in lane 5. She has the opportunity to qualify for her 2nd Olympic team here. She's also been looking really strong in the water. Those two have pushed each other over the last few years.
So 26.0 for Alexiak, 26.4 for Smith. They're your top 2. You've got a half body length on the field as they turn on the way back. So Alexiak still looking to find herself onto this Olympic team. Looking very good. With 15 meters left to go, Alexiak with the advantage. Smith right there at her hip as they come to the finish. It's going to be Penny Alexiak in lane number 4. And 54.12, a strong swim this morning. Second in 54.98, that's Rebecca Smith in lane number 2. Sienna Angro, 55.25. Lane number 7, a solid swim for her. Your top 3 this morning in heat number 7.
Yeah, Alexiak looking very strong in the water. I like the way she's riding. I love the way that she built into that race. It would have been easy for her to start to shut it down in that final 25. She had a clear lead, but Alexiak needed to make a statement here this morning and say, make sure you don't forget about me. I'm still fighting for my spot on this Olympic team.
Well, here we go into our 8th and our final heat. Here's Sophie Harvey. So lane number 4, top seed overall, 54.26. Pretty good start as we get underway with our final heat of the women's 100-meter freestyle. Solid underwater at lane number 3, Brooklyn Dothright. Entered in 55.15 as this one gets underway.
And speaking about building into the race, that's exactly what we can see and expect out of Mary Sophie Harvey. Knowing she has a 200 and 400 meter specialized in her, she can build really well into this 100 free.
She's not going to be first at this 50 wall. 26.64 is McMurray and Dothright at lanes 2 and 3. Harvey sitting back in fourth at 26.74, just a 10th back, but nobody closes like Mary Sophie Harvey. 25 meters left to go, and now you can start to see her move in the middle of the pool. Dothright doing well in lane number 3, but here comes Harvey in lane number 4. 54.26 is the seed time as we come to the finish. Mary Sophie Harvey, 54.61, a strong swim to win our 8th and our final heat. Second goes to lane number 3. That's Brooklyn Dothright in time at 54.95. 55.27 for lane number 5, Sarah Fournier.
And this is another great example of if you have a lane in this final, you have a shot at qualifying for the Olympic Games tonight. So it's going to be a really deep field. A lot of our last chance names are all in this mix. As you can see, it's Ella Jansen, Danielle Hannes with a really great swim as well, Ainsley McMurray. The only one on that list that has qualified for the Games already is Mary Sophie Harvey.
So spots up for grabs. It's going to be a very exciting race tonight. If you've got a spot in the final, as we've heard, you've got an opportunity to get on that relay team. That's going to be a very exciting event tonight.
Well, and we saw that they play the hype video every night before finals, the Swimming Canada video, and in it they show the moment of Emily Overholt in this very pool winning the Pan Am Games from lane 8 in the 400 freestyle, and that was such a special moment. It truly proves that it doesn't matter what lane you're in. When you have a lane, you have a chance. Also 2012 trials, I'm sure you remember this too, Jason, but when we saw out of lane number 8, the Turner butterfly winner came. Yeah, it was a really exciting race, and I think when we have a lane in the sport, doesn't matter if you're at age group nationals, doesn't matter if you're provincials, doesn't matter if you're at Canadian Olympic and Paralympic trials, your opportunity is there if you make it.
Absolutely, all those lanes are equal, so it's going to be very exciting and very close. The spread between those top swimmers is not all that much. We did see Alexiak a few tenths of a second out of the rest of the field, but everybody else is bunched in there at 54 high to 55 low. Just like that 200 freestyle for the women, I suspect that it's going to come down to the wire and to the touch, and it's going to be very close tonight in the women's 100 meter freestyle final. This is our next event. This is event 18. This is the men's 200 meter backstroke. And we have 6 heats in this event. The Olympic qualifying time, a 1:57.50. So none of our swimmers who are in this event have been underneath that time. We've had some close calls. Hugh McNeil, last summer at the Worlds, he was a 1:57.7, so you see him up in our final heat. He is currently the closest to that standard.
And this is another really great opportunity for some of our new athletes to come onto the stage. There are no returning Olympians in this field other than, of course, Cole Pratt. So we can potentially see Raven Doman. We have potential for Hugh McNeil. Aiden Norman also having a really great meet so far.
Aiden Norman at 53.99 in the 100 meter backstroke. He was 3rd overall. That's a huge drop for him. He is more of a 200 meter backstroker. So for him to have that speed early on this week, very excited to see what he can put down in these swims. And Blake Turney, the winner of the 100 meter backstroke, not known necessarily as a 200, it's not been his forte, but with the speed of 53.4, I feel like he's going to be dangerous in this one as well.
Yeah, and after having a little bit of time to compose himself after that qualification, it is hard when it's the next morning. You got to get up and stand up, but he's now had a couple days. Of course, he put himself in the mix for that 100 freestyle, and we've seen him across different events, but this backstroke really is his bread and butter, so he'll have a chance to go back to that today.
So leading the way in our first heat, Brian Detz from Etobicoke Swimming. He in lane number 7. He's entered in 2:11.55. Goes to the 150 meter last wall.
Well under that pace right now.
Sure is. 32.8 on that 50. Split 1:34.9. So it looks like he's going to lop off a handful of seconds here. Always great to see these swimmers in our early heats really sort of go forward and make a statement of their own with a new best time, and it looks like it's going to be a new best time by at least 3:04 seconds. Great swim by Brian Detz from Etobicoke Swimming, 17 years of age, winning our first heat in a time of 2:08.22.
awesome drop there. 3.5, almost 4 seconds.
We do have some youngsters in there not swimming by himself. Aiden Norman, we've got Ethan Eck. Ethan Eck won the Canadian Open a little bit over a month ago, a time of 1:59.22.
And we saw Bryce Tierney in that heat. Is that Blake's brother?
I believe it is. He swims for the Saskatoon Goldfinns, a few years younger.
Would only make sense.
It would only make sense.
And they're in the same race. How fun. Although that does create quite a sibling rivalry when you happen to do the same stroke.
I think the house championship currently is owned by his brother, much like your sibling has the 100-meter freestyle record for the house.
She sure does. She sure does.
So here we go with heat number 2, top seed in lane number 4, Jacques Harrison from Crest Swimming. He's got a 2:09.68 seat time. Off we go, and as we've mentioned, we're talking about the Olympics and the Paralympics so much. We do have a junior national team being selected as well. The Junior Pan Pacific Championships happening in August. They are in Australia. So a lot of these youngsters who managed to get themselves into the A final, or at least the very least the junior final, will be in consideration for that event.
Yeah, and getting to compete on my first junior national team, I was actually in Australia as well, and there's just this extra magic of swimming in Australia because their fan base and their energy and their awareness to the culture that is swimming is unbelievable. I remember I was on a flight and it appeared to be just like an average passenger. They came right up to me and said, well, what events do you swim? Who are you competing against? I said, I'm not used to you knowing all this information. And they knew exactly the stars in every event, and that was what was so cool. It really kind of reminded me of how common knowledge swimming is in Australia, and so I think they'll all leave with really lasting impressions. And I also think in Canada we're making strides towards being more in the common knowledge conversation with these athletes like Summer McIntosh, Penny Lexiak, Josh Leando, etc.
Well, that is good to hear. We've had plenty of reason to talk about swimming of late in Canada, so the profile of the sport continues to rise as we have a little bit less than 75 meters to go in heat number 2. Jacques Harrison. He's out in 1:00.53. 31.1 on his second 50, so pretty strong on that second 50. He's going through now the 150-meter mark, 1:33.4, so he's dropped off a little bit. He's still on pace to be well under that 2:09. He turned at 1:33.4. 25 meters to go in heat number 2.
And this final 25 push and backstroke is always a brutal one. Your legs really start to catch up with you, but some people in this race love to save it for the final 10 meters.
Swimmers moving up in lanes number 5 and 6, but they're not going to get to Harrison in lane number 4, 2:06.75. A 3-second drop for him from his seat time. It's a 17-year-old from Crest Swimming, Jacques Harrison.
That's an awesome performance and a nice head nod. It's funny watching athletes, some of them are expecting a big drop, so once they do it, they just have kind of a composed, okay, I'm proud of myself, but I'm moving on. And then other times you see a massive celebration because they truly had no idea that kind of drop was coming. So I love to watch the different kind of reactions there.
So this is going to be heat number 3. Elliot Kyer in lane number 4. From Club de Natation de River Rain, 2:08.57 is his seat time. Some pretty good celebrations after that 400-meter individual medley last night by Summer McIntosh.
The most we'll see out of her for sure. A very light fist bump, but it was awesome.
I think it's great for after her 400-meter freestyle. I think we all heard she wasn't as happy with that swim as, it's not what she was hoping for, not what she expected. But still, she didn't let that get in the way of the performances that she had after, in particular that 400 IM last night. So a great lesson, I think, for everybody that, not always just the result of one swim.
I truly think, though, we have that 400 freestyle to thank for the world record last night, because knowing that Summer wouldn't come into this meet a full taper, as the competition goes, she's gaining rest, but she also is a little bit extra fired up after that 400 freestyle. It was night 1. It was arguably when she was a little bit fatigued from the previous week of training, but for her to stand up and get to go the fastest time in the world this year. Is very, very good indicator of what she could do a couple days later, and she did just that. And I think it lit the right fire underneath her to be able to do it.
Here we go into the 100 wall. We did have Paul Rogo in lane number 8 leading the way from Langley, but it's lane number 7 at 101.0. That's Justin Lordy from CNQ. Lordy entered in a time of 2:09.01. Turns a couple tenths of a second ahead at the halfway point. The lane's pretty tight though. In lanes 0 all the way through to 5, swimming together as they make their way to the last wall. Coming to our circle seeded heats next, and the 3 seed overall in this event, Ethan Eck, 17 years of age. We'll see him in heat number 4. Lordy now with a little bit over 25 meters to go, and here comes Paul Orogo in lane number 8. Turned a half second apart at 1:34.3 and 1:34.8, and Orogo now driving here to the finish. He's really moving with these last 25 meters. Langley and Abbotsford Olympians Paul Orogo take heat number 3 in a time of 2:06.38. So some good swims early on as we get to our circle seated heats. Again, that's standard Olympic qualifying time, a 1:57.50.
Yeah, in this heat, our fastest qualifier is Ethan Eck, a relatively new name to our Canadian audience. Trains in the US, 1:59.22 is his entry time.
That was the time he did just a month ago at the Canadian Open, the inaugural Canadian Open. He's just 17 years of age. We've seen him in a few other finals already this week. Put up a pretty good 400-meter freestyle early on. He is now our top seed in heat number 4, the men's 200-meter backstroke. Go now in lane number 4. You can see those blue rings on the lane ropes indicating 15-meter mark.
Right, and we haven't talked too much about that, but the swimmers have to have reached the surface of the water by that 15-meter mark. It is illegal to go the whole way underwater. Technically, you'd wonder, well, why do you want to go underwater? That is actually the fastest scientific way to move through the water. Now, if you're someone like me that is not a good underwater kicker, it might not be your best bet, but some of these athletes, if they have the strength underwater, that would definitely be something to make the most of here and have really long underwaters on each wall. The hardest part, though, on that third turn with the 50 to go is to try to get in a good, solid amount of kicks when you're just completely out of breath.
And it's always a good indicator when it comes to a close race as to who is going to finish, who's going to have that finishing kick. You can watch that underwater, see who still gets out to 13, 14 meters and gets out there to speed. Ethan Eck turning here at the 158.95 seconds, just a couple tenths of a second over what he was at the Canadian Open, where he split 58.5 on his way to his personal best at 159.22. Lane number 3 looking strong as well. That's Parker Lenko. He's also swimming unattached. He's a 59.0, just a tenth of a second behind Eck.
And Parker, a really good example of a strong underwater there. He was just behind Eck at the turn, but caught up here on the underwaters.
Let's see if he can do that again. Eck to the wall first, 129.3. Lenko 130.2, but Eck looking very smooth and very relaxed in the middle of the pool here. He's having a nice controlled swim this morning. We're going to give this one to Ethan Eck, the 17-year-old swimming unattached, 159.22 is his best here this morning. Winning this heat, 159.68, a good finish. Just over his lifetime best, tracking 2 minutes this morning.
Yeah, for him to be able to do that in the morning, just over the best time, that's a really good indicator of what might be possible tonight.
So in our next heat, Rabin Doman in lane number 4, 158.64 is his entry time. Beside him, you can see lane number 5, the winner of the 100-meter backstroke, Blake Turney. Turney's got a entry time, the seat time of 2:00.02. He's been a little bit quicker. That was a couple years ago. Time of 1:59.1. Just a half second back from Doman.
Yeah, and in lanes 4 and 5, as you mentioned, with Robin Doman and Blake Tierney, those two are teammates, both training out of the High Performance Center in Vancouver, coached by Scott Talbot. Seems to be a program that's really revived itself over the last couple of years. Now, Robin Doman actually used to come from open water as a background. So in 2019, he made the World Championships team in open water, the 5K, finished 16th there. Then his first pool debut was at the Pan Am Games, where he finished in the final of this very event, the 200 backstroke, and he also swam on the world's team in 2024, where he swam this 200 back and 200 fly at the World Championships that were just early in the new year.
This must feel like an absolute sprint for Robin Doman in lane number 4, coming down from racing 5Ks to 200-meter events.
And those two events were a very strong showing, too, for Blake Tierney, that Pan Am Games combo with the Doha World Championships. This was a little bit of a weird calendar schedule for us swim fans, throwing in the Doha Worlds that happened in January, it was February, but a lot of athletes opted out of it, but other athletes with less experience decided to opt into it because it was a really great opportunity to race on the international stage, and two of those athletes that made the most of it were Tierney and Doman.
So no surprise here. The winner of the 100-meter backstroke out in front through the first 50, 27.7. It's a few tenths of a second underneath what he did when he went that lifetime best a couple of years ago. Tierney's best time does sit at 1:59.1. He's driving pretty hard, pretty quick here through the first half. It's a very fast outing at 57.3. Just a couple tenths of a second over that Canadian record pace. The Canadian record held by Marcus Thormeyer, time he did the World Championships in 2019, 1:56.96. Robin Doman, a second and a half back at 59.0. He's got his work cut out for him to get up to Tierney. Making their way to the last wall now. We'll see what kind of energy they have left coming off on that underwater as Tierney goes through at 1:28.41. 1:30 flat for Doman.
Yeah, the two of them don't have to push this final 25, although it looks like they're staying nice and tough here in the prelims. It is a bit of a mental battle. Sometimes you do want to feel a little bit too much pain to be able to get yourself in that race mindset and to prep for tonight's final to be able to push it to your very limit.
Well, let's see what we get out of your race leader, Blake Tierney, in lane number 5 as he comes through to the finish. 1:59.71. He picked it up into the wall, 2:00.4. Good last 50 for Doman. Those are our top two, still led by Ethan Eck with the time of 1:59.68 in the previous heat. Pretty solid swimming out of heat number 5 as we get ready for our 6th and our final heat of the men's 200-meter backstroke. Hugh McNeil swimming in lane number 4, the UBC Thunderbirds. Fastest seated swimmer at 1:57.73.
And again, our only returning Olympian in this event will be in lane number 2. Nice bald head there for Cole Pratt.
It's a nice round head.
I wonder where he gets it from.
There's some genetics there. He's been as fast as 1:57.9. He did in Calgary leading up to the Olympic trials in 2021. 5th in the 100-meter backstroke earlier in this event. Go with heat number 6. He starts across the board. The youngster, Aidan Norman, is swimming in lane number 5. He's the number 2 seed in this heat. 1:59.35 is his entry time. We've seen a 1:59.6. Ethan Eck, a 1:59.7. Blake Tierney. Pretty close in the middle of the pool as they come down to the 50. It's a slight advantage by Norman in lane number 5. He's turning around first at 28.1, followed by Cole Pratt at 28.4 in lane number 2. McNeil sitting back comfortably in 4th place with a 28.68 split.
And these athletes are really looking for what's called easy speed on that first 50. You want to put yourself in a position. You do not want to overexert, though, on that first 50. So get into your tempo, work in with your legs, but definitely don't overdo it on that first 50.
No, you're absolutely right. Nothing feels so good and so easy as the first 50 of a 200, so you don't want to overdo it. 57.5, a great split by Norman in lane number 5. Turney's moving up. He's 58.9. Pratt a tenth of a second back at 59.0 in lane number 2.
Yeah, we talked about Aiden Norman having really a strong 100 backstroke, but this is his better event, and he looks like he's doing really well there.
He was 29.3 on that second 50, so if he can pull off another 29 here, we might see something pretty special. 29.6. The Canadian record is in jeopardy. That record stands at 156.96, and Norman, I believe, is going to smoke that record here. Look at him go with 25 meters.
Building into the race here. Norman is not backing down in this prelim session.
Wow, Aiden Norman, that 53.9 stood him in good spots as he comes with 5 meters left to go. The record is 156.96, and Norman 158.30. He faded just a little bit there at the end, but a good swim by Aiden Norman this morning, a lifetime best. I got kind of stumbled up in my words trying to figure out those splits and as he was going, but really impressed by that swim by Norman. Second is Hugh McNeil, 2:00.0.
And that truly is one of those swims where he can now leave the pool knowing he has a chance at making the Olympic team tonight. He knows it's within reach. He might have to change up his strategy slightly because he did add about a 2-second addition to his last third 50 on that final 50, so tightened up a little. We talk about how you feel that lactic acid coming home. You could visibly see it within him on the final 25, but he's still young. He'll recover really well this afternoon, and I think he's got that standard within him.
Well, he has 3 of the 4 50s that he needs to be putting down a fantastic swim here and challenge that Canadian record and challenge the standard to qualify. He was only 0.8 of a second over the qualifying standard for the men's 200-meter backstroke. That standard does sit at 157.50, 158.3, our top time this morning by Aiden Norman. 200-meter breaststroke is next. And we had a bit of a surprise, I think, in the 100-meter breaststroke early on, where we had a number of swimmers seated and who have been faster than that standard, but nobody got underneath that standard.
It was a really great example, I think, of the pressure that can build in an event like this, Olympic and Paralympic trials. You have one chance, you have one swim, and often you don't necessarily see personal best times. You see people getting the job done, but the times aren't always where they want them to be. And unfortunately, that was a race where we led up with a lot of expectations and weren't necessarily met by them. This is a race of second chances, though. This is arguably our favorites will be Kelsey Wog and Sydney Pickram, but those breaststrokers like Alexandre Lepage, who didn't make the team in the 100, have a chance here to qualify in the 200.
So we will see those swimmers coming up a little bit later. There are 7 heats. Heat 6 will feature Kelsey Wog. Heat 7, Sydney Pickram. And a few other swimmers close to that standard. It does sit at 223.91. Wog already this year has just been a couple tenths of a second over that cut, 224.2. And of course, Sydney Pickram picked up the bronze medal at the World Championships underneath at 224 or 222.9. Those swimmers were in the mix in the 100 as this first heat gets going. Lily Chai in lane number 4 from Markham entered in 242.09. 13 years old. She's the fastest seated swimmer in Heat 1. She's out in a 117.40. Right with her in lane number 5 is Willow Coburn from Club Warriors. Coburn's sea time 242.12.
The 200 breaststroke does involve quite a lot of technical elements. Similar to any stroke 200, it really is about conserving the right amount of energy and pushing at the right time, but you can see the glide in each stroke of breaststroke. They want to finish out the front of their strokes, finish each kick You don't want to get too high in the water, but we've spoken during the 100 breaststroke how there's so many different techniques across the board in this discipline.
A lot of these swimmers fitting the stroke to the various body types and doing a good job of that in lane number 5, Willow Coburn, 158.72 through 150 meter mark. She's on pace to be right at 240. We'll see what she can do. She's got 25 meters left to go. She's up on Lily Chai in lane number 4. Both these swimmers should be close to those seed times, if not better, at 242.0 and 242.1. Go just over 5 meters to go as they hit the red marks on the lane ropes. And it is going to be lane number 5, 241.39. That's Willow Coburn from Club Warrior in our first heat of the women's 200 meter breaststroke.
Solid second drop off her entry time and a big smile.
Also got Alexandre LePage coming up. She's a 3rd seed overall. She is just over that Olympic qualifying time, 224.70. She's the reigning world junior champion in that event.
Yeah, I used to always think of her more as a 100 specialist, but after coming onto the world junior stage last summer, swimming that lifetime best to get her on the top of the podium. I mean, talk about momentum. You got to think that win of the 100 really led her and helped her get to that win in the 200 as well.
And we've seen that happening here this week as well. The momentum of one good race carrying through and resulting in some other fine performances. I keep going back to Mary Sophie Harvey, and she started out with a bang, making the 100 meter butterfly standard, maybe something we didn't expect or she didn't expect. And then with the 155 and the 200 meter freestyle, she is a swimmer who is using that momentum definitely to her advantage.
Yeah, we see it on both sides, right? You see it where things go well and then they have to continue to try to see them go well, and then you see the other side where they had a disappointing performance and have to get back up the next morning. We saw that in Lauren Wigington. We saw that for Ella Jansen a few times. We've seen that for Julie Brasseau. So there's a ton of different mental hurdles. The physical ones are probably the least of their worries this week. It's all about staying in the right headspace, staying in the zone you need to be, staying positive, doing the right things recovery-wise, and turning around and racing every single day here.
You know, those are the ones that really stick with me and resonate with me. You mentioned right at the beginning of the broadcast how it was a lane 8 win for the 400 meter freestyle from the Pan American Games. Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah.
And that was a result of being disqualified the night before, or 2 nights before. I can't remember if it was immediately or two in the 400 meter individual medley.
In her best event, yeah.
And then being able to come back and win the 400 meter freestyle. So a testament to the resolve of that young lady. And we've seen that through here. You mentioned Morgan Wigington. Disappointed in the 400 IM coming back and then presumably making the team for the 4x200 meter freestyle, an event arguably not one of his better events. So very exciting to see that.
And the standards for these athletes are so high, right? Like, Lauren didn't have what you'd arguably call a bad race in the 400 IM. He was just a second off his lifetime best, but it was going to take an exponential race for him to get on that team. So you can take one step and look at it, oh my gosh, I didn't make it. And the other step to look at it would be, well, you know what? I'm still close to my very best. And so there are so many different ways you can emotionally and mentally recover from those moments, but we've seen some really great examples this week of how athletes are able to bounce back.
So looking for the bounce back will happen a little bit later as we get to the final heats of the 200 meter breaststroke. For our top seed, still looking to get a spot on the Canadian Olympic team for the Paris Games. Into a strong close here in heat number 2. Sonia Bakshi, University of Calgary Swim Club in lane number 5. Bakshi entered in a time of 241.28. Underneath that here, she hits the wall, 239.38. Good swim and a 2-second drop for Bakshi to win heat number 2. Ready for our 3rd heat of the 200 meter breaststroke.
We'll have 7 heats in this event, so 2 more, and then we get right into the circle seated heats.
We saw some fine performances out of the men. The men's event contested a couple days ago, and the youngster Oliver Dawson with a bit of a surprise win. Winning that event 2:12.4. He was a bit off the Olympic qualifying time, but the youngster obviously showing his potential for years to come with that fine swim. It's a new national age group mark. He took down, well, his old mark from the morning and the mark set by Gabe Mastro-Mateo at the World Junior Championships in 2019 before that.
Yeah, and talk about pacing a race. He just closes so well on that final 50. You cannot count him out. And I feel bad for his competitors because you could very well have a good 5-second lead, but it doesn't matter on that final 50 there.
Yeah, you don't want to feel Oliver Dawson breathing down your neck coming home on that last 50. To get this one underway, a top seed in heat number 3 is Mel Sanborn from Pacific Coast, 14 years of age, entered in 239.65. Saw 239.38 in the previous heat by Sonia Bakshi from the University of Calgary. It's the fastest time you've seen early on in these heats. 35.32 is the split time for Victoria Edgar, swimming in lane number 1 from Etobicoke Swimming. She does have a C time of 240.4. She's being challenged by lane number 3, Caitlin Vu. She's swimming unattached. A C time at 239.87. They're coming to the 100 wall together. And Vu in lane number 3. First to the 100 wall, 116.59, just ahead of lane number 1. Victoria Edgar from Etobicoke Swimming sitting back at 116.93. Something is relatively new, that underwater dolphin kick. I guess in the sport of swimming, hasn't been around for that long.
Right.
It's part of the breakout.
And the underwater pullout is what it's called. So in breaststroke, when you push off the wall, you are hopefully in a nice tight streamline. You then take one dolphin kick, pull your arms down, and then you're going to kick them back up with a breaststroke motion. So it is done very well by athletes at this level, but it's one thing when you're an age group swimmer, you've got to learn it quite a few times before you can perfect it.
First to the 150 wall, Ashley Wilkie. It's a 157.94, a solid third 50 at 40.8. She outsplit everybody by almost a second and a half on that third 50. You see her starting to move near the top side of that yellow lane in the middle of your screen. And Wilkie, representing the Markham Aquatic Club, 15 years of age. She has a C time of 239.97. Pacing like that at 157.9. She should be underneath that with just a little bit more than 5 meters to go. Heat number 3 is going to go to Ashley Wilkie from Markham. Winning in a time of 239.25. That's our new number 1 this morning in the women's 200-meter breast.
7/10 off that. I can't help but watching some of these athletes that are, 13, 14, 15. The Pan Am Games that we've just spoken about in 2015, that facility like this didn't exist yet, and some of these athletes, especially from the Markham, the Scarborough, the North York areas, like they get to train here regularly. They have a 50-meter pool, both in Markham and in here in Scarborough. So just thinking back to how much that has changed for the next generation, that we almost take it for granted, the fact that these facilities exist, but it really has led to so much of the future success in Canadian swimming.
Yeah, you can see the testament to the speed of the pool on the records board here, sitting up and above the stands. Noting 300 plus records. We'll have to update that at least with the world records that we've seen already here this weekend. So some pretty good swims. Somebody's going to have to climb up on a big ladder and make some adjustments. We get going here with the next heat, and in lane number 4 from Hollyburn, she's a top seed. Jessica Strong, 238.08, 239.25 done in the last heat. It's our fastest time this morning. Not much of a spread here in this field, with a second and a half is all that separates lane 0 through to 9. Out in front, Maya Holt, time of 34.92, pretty strong first fast 50. That's the fastest we've seen out of any of our competitors. She's swimming for Dorval. She's got an entry time of 239.00.
And funny, we mentioned Summer working on her breaststroke earlier, but coincidentally, she's the 4th fastest Canadian in this event this year. Of course, not an event she will be swimming here at these trials nor at the Olympic Games, but it just puts it into perspective how competitive she would be across almost every single event in this program.
Well, and it's something we mentioned too, as a 400-meter individual medley world record holder, she races all of the 200s. She's world ranked in the top 10 in the 200-meter backstroke. 200-meter butterfly, I think she's first, if not in the top 2 or 3. So, and of course, obviously the 200-meter freestyle, incredibly well-rounded athlete. Jessica Strong through 100 meters at 1:14.36. She's leading the way, has taken over the lead now. She's, as we mentioned, the top-seeded swimmer at 2:38.0. Lane number 5, that's Brittany Kennett. Trying to go with her as well as Ella Collins in lane number 3 as they come to the last wall. We'll have to see what we get for a split time here as Jessica Strong hits the wall first. 1:55.61, a half second up on Kennett in lane number 5. She's pacing nicely to be underneath that 2:38.0 that she has as her entry time. Great pullout out of Kennett in lane number 5. Look at this, she's pulled herself up almost even. A little bit less than 25 meters to go now in heat number 4. So this is the last of our heats. Last of the heats that are not circle seated. Coming up next will be the number 3 seed overall, Alexandre Lepage. As heat number 4 comes to the close, it is lane number 5, Brittany Kennett. Time at 2:37.05.
Solid performance there. Heat win. You see the Texas A&M cap. This is where Sydney Pickram trains. We'll see her coming up in the final circle seated, final circle seated heat. That'll be heat number 7. But now we focus our attention to Alexandre Lepage. She will have lane 4 here. And we spoke about in the 100 breaststroke how she actually trains more for the 400 IM, the 200 IM. So that would probably bode well, Jason, for her 200 breaststroke.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot of similarities between training for the 400 IM and carrying over to the 200 breaststroke, more so than the 100 breaststroke. And you know, she put up a solid swim in the 100. It's not like it was that far off, but wasn't our top swimmer or underneath the cut. She's got an entry time here of 2:24.70, time that she did winning the World Championships, World Junior Championships this fall. She is swimming in the middle of the pool in lane number 4. Beside her in lane number 5, Tess Chaplua from Markham Aquatics. 2:27.52 is her entry time. Also a well-rounded swimmer.
Yeah, we saw Tess have a good go at it in the 400 AM last night. That is one of her strongest events. That's she qualified for the Olympics in 2020 or 2021. We still refer to it as the 2020 Olympics, but
well,
it
they never
did
changed
happen.
the name. You're right.
Yeah,
right.
it did happen in 2021, of course.
And I suspect after all of the swag that was printed up for 2020, it would be rather difficult to switch that over all to 2021. 33.5 is a split time for your race leader in lane number 3. That's Katja Pacevic, representing Toronto Swim Club. She's entered in 2:29.51. She's out and looking pretty strong. About a head and shoulders ahead of Alexandre Lepage in lane number 4, followed by Chaplua in lane 5.
Alexandre just starting at the University of Calgary. You can see she's wearing that yellow cap. It's hard to miss them. She's actually studying engineering, so quite a balance to have to do that kind of course load and, of course, being a high-performance athlete.
1:11.42 is a split time for Pacevic in lane number 3. 0.3 of a second back is Lepage, followed by Chaplua. So looking pretty long and pretty relaxed. You mentioned how the difference in the width of the pole from the athletes is pretty evident, at least from our perspective when we're looking back. Different techniques for all of them. Pacevic in lane number 3. She's going to be first to the 150. Lepage moving though. It's 1:49.5 to 1:50.0. 38.1 split. Your race leader, Pacevic, in lane number 3. So she's on pace to be underneath that seed time of hers. It does stand at a 2:29.51. See how much she's got left is Alexandre Lepage. She's starting to make a bit of a move here now in lane number 4.
Yeah, she's swimming an incredibly smart race. Did not want to push it too hard this morning. Does want to get herself into the final comfortably, though, and that's what you can watch right now.
And Lepage surging here towards the finish. 2:28.52 to win heat number 5. Solid swim this morning. Pacevic is second in a time of 2:29.72, swimming in lane number 3. Chaplua, 2:30.24. She'll be in for third in lane number 5. Well, Kelsey Waugh, She's up next. 2:24.27 is her seed time. She's been as fast as 2:22.42. That was the time she put down winning the U Sport or Canadian University Championships back in 2020, right before everything all fell apart.
And
University of Manitoba Bisons.
yeah, Olympian, 25 years of age, from Winnipeg, as mentioned. She is hoping to qualify for her second team. Just off the team, actually, in 2016. She came third in the 200 at the trials then, so just shy. We've seen her on countless national teams since then. She was in the final of the 2019 World Championships, finishing 6th. She has swam this event in the semi-final at the Tokyo Games. In the 2022 Worlds, she finished 4th in this event. And then at the last year's World Championships 2023, she was also in the final, finishing 8th in this event.
Looking very good here. We saw her already this year. She's put down 2:24.2, unrested. She did that at the Western Canadian Championships a couple of months ago. She's out here 32.6, so that's the same speed that she was using at the Western Championships. So looks like she is out and out pretty quickly. We'll see if that little bit of rest now starts to show up on the back end of this race. Sitting second in lane number 5, Nina Kucherin. Sharon in lane number 5 from Sudbury Laurentian. 2:26.90 is her seed time. And Wog distancing herself from the field 2 body lengths already as we come to the 100.
And her stroke is just so efficient right now. You can see the glide at the end of it. She does not look like she's putting in a ton of work, but a 1:08.69 at the 100.
And that rest is really paying off on that back end. So when she went to Westerns, she was 2:24.2. She was out 1:09.3. So the difference is right there on that second 50 at 36.0, 1:08.6 at the 100. That is some good speed.
And Wog is another example of someone that was just on the outside looking in the 100. So she finished second, wasn't under that Olympic qualifying time though. So her spot is still yet to be determined on this Olympic team.
So here we go, 1:45.7 at the 150 meter mark. 37.0 on that 50, turning second is Kucherin at 1:54. A little bit left to go for your race leader, Kelsey Wog. University of Manitoba Bisons in lane number 4. Very good and very strong here in our 6th heat of the women's 200 meter breaststroke. 2:28.52 is our fastest time. That was done in the previous heat by Alexandre Lepage from the University of Calgary Swim Club. This one is going to go to Kelsey Wog in lane number 4, 2:23.71. That is underneath the Olympic qualifying time here this morning in the prelims. A great swim by Wog.
Wow. She just gets under by 2/10, but you've got to think that puts her in a good position for tonight. She looks happy with that. She had a nice, content head nod. Not the type of athlete you'll see with a big celebration very frequently, but
you can see that bison on her cap. Another one of our prairie ungulates, along with the antelope that we talked about a couple days ago. This one a lot bigger and a lot more powerful. A great power shown here by Kelsey Wog in lane number 4 with a 2:23.71. That is just outside the top 10 in the world currently. As we get set for our 7th and our final heat of women's 200 meter breaststroke. This one does have our top seed, Brittany Sydney Pickram, swimming in lane number 4.
and talk about another athlete that is quite accomplished. 2-time Olympian Sydney Pickram trying to qualify for her 3rd Olympic Games. She has been on the podium so many years in so many different events on the international stage. She won 3 medals at the 2019 World Championships, one of them coming in this very event, the 200 breaststroke. She also won 3 medals at the 2024 Doha Worlds just months ago. She did not compete at the 2023 World Championships. She has been very vocal about her mental health and taking the right rest that she needs in order to be the best athlete possible. Of course, she also came back to the Pan Am Games, though, winning 3 more medals there. So the last year for Pickram, she has looked back on best form. We're seeing her swim incredibly well across both the 200 IM, where she set a PB within the last year, and also in the 200 breaststroke. So this is one of her events she's hoping to qualify for the Games.
So Pickram's lifetime best goes all the way back to 2019, 2:22.63, but she was just a couple tenths of it a second off of that at the Worlds, as you mentioned, Brittany, a very fine swim there, 2:22.9. Here she is on the first 50, 33.5, so she's a little bit back from WOG, but she does have the benefit of being in our 7th and our final heat. She's seen everything that's come before her, so maybe she is taking a step back and realizing, well, I don't really have to get down to 2:22, 2:23 this morning.
Absolutely. She's going to make her push where she wants to make her push, but that is the benefit of having the last lane in the last heat. You can swim a smart race. Right now you see Angus coming up. That is the only athlete in this breaststroke field that already has their name on that Olympic roster. She won the event in the 100 breaststroke. It was a really close touch, but having already been under that Olympic qualifying time, she'll be able to be in the conversation to swim the event individually as well.
So here we go on to the back half of the race. The top two swimmers separated by 2/100ths of a second. Pickram at 1:11.05 and Angus at 1:11.07. Got a second up on Avery Wiseman swimming in lane number 5. Wiseman from the Olympian Swim Club in Edmonton.
Still looking very relaxed there for Pickram. No little extra zip, what I like to call it, when the athletes are really pushing it. You see a nice, relaxed, confident athlete, but you do not see an emptying of the tank here from Pickram.
No, not at all. Extremely long and strong is Pickram, a 38.0 on that last 50, but you see her starting to pick up a little bit here. Doesn't really need to go anywhere near that standard or her best time this morning. She's going to be safely into the final, probably in the high 220s. Angus beside her in lane number 3, not that far off. Wiseman, she's up with them as well in lane number 5 as they come to the finish. Powering in is going to be Sydney Pickram in lane number 4, 2:28.06. Put it comfortably in the middle of the pool. Tonight in our final for the women's 200-meter breaststroke.
Sure was a statement for WOG, though, to come out here in the morning with a 2:23. She's going into the final tonight by 4.5 seconds, the favorite.
Well, she does that, and she did that even at Western. She powered through in the morning, and then she did it again at night, testing that front end speed. So she's used to doing this, and I love to see that, because when she gets to the Olympic Games,
Exactly.
if she gets to the Olympic Games, she's gonna have to be awful quick in the morning.
Right, and that's what it's all about. You have to stand up and perform. A lot of the time when these athletes are used to taking it easy in the morning or a little bit more relaxed, they go to the big competitions and their body's not used to standing up and going a best time in the morning, but this is really encouraging to see that out of Kelsey WOG. I'm really looking forward to watching that race in the finals.
Well, speaking of encouraging, Ilya Karun has put up a heck of a 100-meter freestyle. Dropped a couple seconds off of his seed time, and he's going to be coming up in this 200-meter butterfly later, so expecting some solid solid things out of him in this event.
Yeah, we haven't got a chance to see our kind of prime within Ilya yet. Of course, this is what I consider one of the futures of Canadian swimming. We're just recently getting to know him over the last couple of years, but he has surged onto the stage as a national record holder in this very event that we're gearing up for, the 200-meter butterfly.
Here we go. We do have 5 heats. Canadian record held by, as we mentioned, Ilya Karun. The time he did at the World Championships in 2023 in Fukuoka, Japan. 53.82. He will be in heat number 5. As we get ready to dive in now, heat number 1.
And similar to the 200 backstroke, this is an event where we'll probably see a new Olympian. There are no returning Olympians competing in this field. Ilya has been on multiple national teams, but yet to make his first Olympic Games. The only other one in this program, Patrick Hussey, who will be on one of those relay consideration spots. He'll be in heat number 4, lane number 5 later in the program, but we see him across the freestyle, the butterfly, another one of those names we think of versatility.
So looking to get some new names on our list for Paris 2024 as the 200-meter butterfly gets underway. The top seed in our first heat, Matthew Marcella, 16 years of age for the Guelph Marlins, entered in 2:09.83. The Olympic qualifying time is a time of 1:55.78. We only have one swimmer who's seated underneath that. That is a Canadian record holder, Ilya Karun. Number 2 seed overall, Benjamin Lohan from Crest Swimming at a 1:57.98, not far back. Kevin Zhang from the University of Western Ontario, the Warriors, University of Waterloo Warriors, 1:58.97. The first 100 meters here in the first heat, 1:00.02. That is lane number 7, Casey McDermott from the Summerland Orcas. Tournament has a C time of 2:10.14, leads the way. Now, we've talked about events that are difficult, that are physically challenging and painful. 400 IM, the 1500 free, 800 free. The 200 fly is right up there as well.
It is, and for me as an athlete, this was my largest mental hurdle in my career. I was a little 11 and 12-year-old girl, and I could not mentally get through the Turner fly. And I think physically I was always there, but there's such fear and anticipation, I guess, with a race like this. It's the one race, I think, truly, that you're not 100% sure if you're going to get through, because in a freestyle, when you start to fatigue, you can lock up, but you can always make it through the stroke. The butterfly, you can start swimming almost vertically. That's how much the train can hit you. So I had a lot of
I have been hit by that train multiple times.
Yeah, that train definitely did. I had to get through it. I know a lot of athletes had to get through it. It takes a nice toughness.
Here we go at the end of our first heat. 2:08.65 is the winning time. That's Kieran Dick from the Saskatoon Goldfins. It's a drop of a second and a half from the C time for him. We'll be happy with that. 200 butterfly, as you just mentioned, is one of those milestone events for those young age groupers. The first time they get themselves through that. These swimmers here, obviously, with a lot of experience swimming this event, on the way up to the Olympic trials. Second heat is ready to go, and Emile Tifo from Neptune in lane number 4 is the top seed in our second heat at 2:07.21. .7.21 for Tifo in lane number 4. 2 seconds separate our 10 swimmers here in our second heat of the 200-meter butterfly based on their C time. So likely a close race as we get to the first 50. 27.63. Henri Valancourt from Camo in lane number 6 is out in front.
And this is a pretty tight program, not as many entrants in this event, so we actually only have 5 heats, and we're gearing up for the next heat to be the top of our circle seated. Again, there's not as much depth in this race, but the potential is there with Ilya Haroun being one of our international stars. We also will see in the last heat beside him some of our junior world championship finishers. It's a bit of a stretch, though, to get a second athlete under that 155.78, but we've seen some athletes this morning already that dropped massive PBs to put themselves in those conversations.
Well, absolutely, and Kevin Zhang might be one of them. He's, he swam at the World Junior Championships for Canada. He's the national age group record holder in this event at 158.97. He is going to have the benefit of swimming beside Ilya Haroun in that 5th and that final heat of the 200-meter butterfly. And we've seen that those fast swimmers able to encourage and pull along some of those that are close, particularly some of those youngsters where, the ceiling is really unlimited at the moment. So we can get that out of Zhang or one of our other youngsters. So 25 meters left to go in our second heat of the 200-meter butterfly. Jordan Schaefer in lane number 5 appears to have a slight advantage. He's 17 years of age, swimming to Via Canada. 2:07.27. So he's going to be underneath that as he comes with just 2 strokes left. It's Schaefer, number 5, 2:06.11. And heat number 2.
Second off of his entry time there.
So here we go with the first of our last 3 circle-seated heats.
Important to note in this first circle-seated heat, in lane 4, Sebastian Lunik has a star beside his name, which implies that he is an international athlete. So when we do keep an eye on the middle lanes, we do have to consider the fact that he will not be eligible to qualify for our Canadian Olympic team, nor to qualify for the A final tonight.
Lunik entered in the time of 1:58.34. He won't be able to, as Brittany said, advance to the A final, but this one's a good time. He might be able to pull along a few of these other athletes beside him. Max Malakovits in lane number 5 from Etobicoke has entered in 2:00.01, a 2-minute milestone. I'm sure he would like to get himself under.
Yeah, he trains here at the HPC Ontario as well. So You got to think when the teammates of yours start qualifying for the Olympics, when you get the chance to train with Olympians, that really starts to set in that might be you, and he's gotten a lot of people to look up to.
Lunek out pretty quick at 25.73. As Brittany mentioned, an international swimmer, so likely trying to put down a very fast time for his consideration for his own country's Olympic standards. Second is Malekevitz. Malekevitz in lane at number 5. He was 7/10 of a second back at 26.4 as they come to the 100. 55.46, a pretty fast outing for Lunek. 29.7 on that second 50. Strong on the underwater. He's out to about 11 or 12 meters. The qualifying time, it does stand at 1:55.78.
Looks like Lunek competes for Czech Swimming Federation. So yes, as you mentioned, we'll have to keep an eye on the standards. A lot of internationals will come here as it's a sanctioned event to try to get their selection for individual Olympic teams as well.
1:26.61 through to the 150-meter mark. A little bit more than a second up on Malekevitz in lane number 5. Malekevitz, he's on pace now to get under that 2 minutes just by a small margin. He's actually looking very good here, catching up to Lunek with 15 meters left to go. Look, Lunek really blasted out to that first 50 and 100, but here comes Malekevitz in lane number 5 from eSwim. He's pretty close on the wall and at the touch. 1:59.55, cracking the 2-minute mark for the first time ever. There's a fist pump. He's happy about that, as he well should be.
A really great put together performance too. Stayed nice and relaxed. It is hard in butterfly to have easy speed, but he appeared to have quite easy speed. Took the race out, put himself in a position for that final stretch in the final 25 to contest against Sebastian Lunek there.
Great swim by Malekevitz. Underneath 2 minutes this morning. Happy about that one as we get ready for our 4th heat. Benjamin Lowen in lane number 4, crest swimming. You see him there in the middle of the pool. The time is 1:57.98. He is the second fastest Canadian in this event, seated in this event. And beside Lowen in lane number 5, Patrick Hussey from Pointe Claire. He's entered in at 1:59.54. Hussey's been having a good meet this week.
Hussey's been having a really great meet this week for sure. And Ben Lowen competing at the U Sport level for the University of Toronto as well. He's been known to really step up in that U Sport facility, so we'll see if he can do it here today.
And it's Hussey though out in front, 25.87. A pretty fast first 50 meters for Patrick Hussey.
And that's a great example of an athlete that has the extra pep in their step after qualifying for their first Olympic team. At this point, there's nothing to lose and everything to gain.
So it's Hussey out ahead of Lowen as they come to the 100-meter mark. It's a 1:59.54 sea time for Patrick Hussey. He's look to be challenging that here as he gets to the 100 at 55.93, so 30.0 on that second 50. Looking pretty good. He's got great rhythm here coming off that 100 wall. Sitting second back in at 57.10, a little bit more than a second behind Hussey now. Making their way to the 150-meter mark, third. It's Michael Andrew Sava. He's split 57.89 at the 100. It's still Hussey with the lead as he comes to the last wall. To the 150 and a 127.39, not far back, 128.7. He has Lowen swimming in lane number 4. So if Hussey can maintain this pace, he should challenge the time that we saw in the previous heat.
Lowen looks really good though in the water right now, getting in lots of air. The one thing about this final stretch is you don't want to get too high in the water, so you're looking for the athletes to stay as low as possible, but he's definitely creeping here with 10 meters to go.
And here comes Lowen. He is gaining ground on Hussey as they hit the 5-meter mark together. The momentum is Lowen's. 2:00.63. A great finish by Benjamin Lowen. Nice swimming. That's the end of heat number 4. We're getting ready now for our 5th and our final heat. This one will feature our Canadian record holder, Ilya Haroun. attached here and mentioned by Brittany. Comes down in Arizona. He has a Canadian record of 1:53.82. Fourth at the World Championships when he set that time back in 2023.
Yeah, and I remember after that race, he was visibly disappointed because he was so close to the podium, and someone who comes on the final 25, so we can't count out Haroon no matter where he is in the race. In this one, he should be clearly our leader, but when it comes to this summer, keep an eye for sure.
So Haroon in the middle of the pool. Lane 0 on the bottom of your screen, lane number 9 at the top, and there goes Haroon early on, a half body length out ahead by 25 meters.
And that's exactly what I was just talking about. See how low he stays to the water. Basically, you do not want that surface area to come up too high. His head nice and tight, aerodynamic. Of course, working with the great Bob Bowman over at ASU. He also won the NCAA title in this event in the 200 fly. Of course, 2024 NCAA champions as a team as well. So he's riding a really big high. He seems to have had a really strong freshman year. Sometimes the athletes struggle their freshman year, but Ilya came in right away and got settled, and he's been lighting up the pool ever since.
And you see here that the day after he got in town, putting up 49s in his 100-meter freestyle, lifetime best by 2 seconds.
I think he can get better in that one too. I think knowing his potential with the yards relays, he's been an ace for his college team. I think he's going to be someone we're going to keep an eye on for freestyle relays as well.
So 55.20 on the way out, 55.7, a great outing for Bill Donfang, swimming in lane number 3. And as we talk, perhaps Haroon might be able to pull some of these youngsters along with him, and it looks like that's the case with Donfang. Swimming in lane number 3, Kevin Zhang in lane number 5, also up and about a body length back from Haroon as Haroon gets to the last wall, 125.42. 127s, 127.6 for Donfang, 127.7 for Zhang, and 3 and 5.
And those are two that have gone neck and neck at the U Sport level as well. Bill swimming for the University of Toronto and Kevin Zhang for the UW Warriors.
So here we go. The top 3 being led by Ilya Haroon in lane number 4. Looking very strong. We're going to see a good swim by Haroon as he wins 155.79. 1/100th of a second over that Olympic qualifying time. I really think that is going to be a problem for him later in the final, but a solid swim this morning by Ilya Haroon to lead the pack going into tonight's final. Second is going to be lane number 5, Kevin Zhang, with a strong finish of 159.72. 006 for Bill Donfang, right on his seat time in lane number 3.
Yeah, and I think what I'm most excited about for this event, there are no returning Olympians in this field, so tonight we get to watch in hopes for the chance to see Ilya Haroon qualify for his very first Olympic team.
Result summary on the screen. Reminder to everybody watching, we do have an A final, we have a B final, as well as a junior final. A couple teams being selected. We do have an open water event being selected from here as well. As we get ready for our next event, which is the 200-meter individual medley, the para multi-class, event number 317 with 2 heats. A few swimmers under 2 minutes, led by Haroon. You can see that. And then it's 200-meter butterfly. We have one international-based swimmer who is listed in the top 10, but won't be swimming in our A final, meaning that 11th place swimmer is bumped up.
And here we are gearing up for the 200 IM in the para program. Heat 1 of 2, as mentioned. Athletes eligible for this race are SM5 to SM11, and then SM13 through 14. We've already seen the 150 medley already in the program. And again, if you hear SM, that is the classification specific to the medley events. It's just an S. That is for freestyle, backstroke, and butterfly. And then we have SB, that is for breaststroke.
So here we go. Allison Goebel swimming in lane number 4, lane 5, Clemence Paire, and in lane number 3, Ella Tucker.
And Clemence, this is her best shot at qualifying for the team in this 200 IM. It's going to be close, and we don't have basically our numbers in the Paralympic program. We have the ability to take 22, as I mentioned, but there aren't more than 30 athletes here competing. So we'll have to see what the selection committee decides and who's going to get to be on that team. We're going to have to keep an eye through to the final night, Sunday night, which makes this even more exciting and why you have to tune into every session, because there's something to miss, something you don't want to miss in every one.
Absolutely right. We'll be naming that team on Sunday evening, so if you're tuned in, you'll be able to see the presentation of the Olympic team, Paralympic team.
And all 3 athletes in this heat are categorized SM5, so we'll keep an eye on who finishes first in the clock, as we can count this as an equivalent field. The SM5A standard is 3:39.99, which is quite quick.
Our top seed in this first heat, Allison Gobil. Her seed time's 4:30.7.
And we'll take a moment to kind of remind you a little bit about our Paralympic program, give you a bit of an overview. So as I mentioned, we have the chance to send 22. That will be 7 men and 15 women. In order to get to that, we had to hit the minimum qualifying standard. So there's about a year that athletes from all across the world had the chance, and that's how we decided on quota spots per country. They made it incredibly hard to attend the trials this year, which is why a good majority of the athletes here will get to compete at the Paralympic Games. Another thing I wanted to mention is that once they're on the team, they can swim any event that they have that minimum qualifying standard in. Only 3 per class, so similar to our Olympic program where it's 2 per event. At the Paralympic program, there's 3 per event maximum. And I just have to stop and talk about this race shaping up. It's a pretty even field there at the halfway point.
And we don't always get all 3 swimmers swimming in the same class in one of our heats because it is multi-class, but here we go. All turning, you saw a great shot with that overhead camera, all coming to the wall together. We've got the advantage happening in lane number 3 with Ella Tucker. Mount Allison, she's got a 4:41.36 seed time. The lead on our 2 competitors to the left of her or above her on the screen.
And a reminder of those classifications. So any of the athletes that are between the S1 and 10 class, those are physical impairments, the lower classifications with the highest impact. Then we have the S11 through 13, which are different variations of visual impairments. And then our S14 are our intellectual impairments.
So it was Tucker with the lead, but I think Clemence Paire in lane number 5 is doing a good job. Now she has pulled herself up and even maybe slightly ahead as they come to the 150-meter wall. We have 50 meters of freestyle left to go in our first heat.
She trains at the High Performance Center, Quebec, one of the programs that was impacted by that fire at the Olympic pool where we were supposed to hold our Olympic trials. They've had to pivot, but all their athletes are resilient.
And actually, I don't think we've mentioned that yet, but it's quite incredible on the part of the organizing committee, Swimming Canada, all of the athletes and teams to, on very short notice, move from one part of the country to another for the Olympic trial event.
Yeah, that was definitely a curveball, but I think after the COVID years of competing and just having to manage whatever was thrown your way, not knowing when the trials would be, not knowing when the Olympics would even be, these athletes are so resilient that at this point, this is the least of their worries.
So here we go. We're at the end of our first heat of the 200-meter individual medley, and Ella Tucker has taken back the lead. She comes to the flags, 5 meters left of freestyle to go. Her sea time is 4:41.36. She's going to destroy that here at a 4:25.10, winning our first heat.
And that is a new national record for SM5. So she beat the mark Jessica Tinney set only a month ago by 5 whole seconds. So the previous mark was a 4:30.46. Now our leader, 4:25.10 for Ella Tucker.
She's happy about that one, as she should be. Taking our first seat and a new Canadian record. Next up, our second and our final heat of the para multi-class 200-meter individual medley. Stacked heat here as we have a full heat of 10 swimmers.
And earlier I chatted a bit about the athletes that are already under that A standard. So on the women's side, it's Katie Cosgriff, Sabrina Duchesne, Orly Rivard, Tess Routliff, and Katarina Roxon. And we're going to see Katarina in lane number 2. We also have Katie Cosgriff in lane 5. And Tess Rowliff, this is one of her better events, so I'm looking forward to that. She's in lane 7. Angela Marina, though, yet to qualify for the team. So this is a really good opportunity for her.
Tess Rowliff, the Canadian record holder in the SM7 class in this event. Angela Marina, Canadian record holder in the S14 class of the 200-meter individual medley. Swimming up here now in our second and final heat of the women's 200 AM.
Well, we have 2 athletes in the SM5 category, Hannah Ouellette in lane 0 and Jessica Tinney in lane 9. So the record that was just set, we'll have to keep an eye on it to maybe one of those athletes has something to say about it.
Yeah, they're seated right down at that record time that we just saw by Tucker in heat number 1. And our SM5 class swimmers swimming in lane 0 at the bottom of your screen, Hannah Ouellette and Jessica Tinney, the former Canadian record holder, just by a few minutes. She's swimming down in lane number 9.
And we'll keep an eye on the middle of the pool right now. A great race from the first 50 between Katie Cosgriff and Angela Marina.
Just separated by a half second there in lanes number 4 and 5. Also moving up in lane 3, that's Maxine Levitt. She represents the University of Manitoba Bison. She's seated at 240.7, a couple seconds back from what we've got out of Marina and Cosgriff in lane number 4 and 5. Cosgriff with the lead as she comes to the 100 wall. She's seated at 239.0. She's swimming 110.2 through the first 100.
Very strong swim there, coming in with a personal best of 239. She's on pace to go much under that.
She's looking very good as they turn on to the breaststroke. We'll see if we get any lead change out of Levitt and Marina in 3 and 4. You can get out there in lane number 6 as well. That's Mary Jibb. Jibb with a C time of 246.1, having a strong breaststroke leg. Race leader is Cosgriff from Oakville, swimming in lane number 5 as they come to the 150 wall. As we mentioned, her C time is 239.0. She's in the SM10 category. The Canadian record at 228.73, held by Orly Rivard. She's at 159.47, 2 seconds up on Levitt in lane number 3, followed 2 seconds back by Marina in lane number 4. Cosgriff doing a good job protecting that lead here with 25 meters of freestyle left to go.
And another example of a really fast A time in this event, SM10, 2:32.10 would be the time that Katie would need to get that official qualification.
So Cosgriff coming in, her C time is a 239.0. She's not going to be under the A cut this morning, but better than her C time, 236.72.
And a good amount of para points as well. That's something we haven't chatted about yet, but basically for each event, there is a cumulative points score that allows us to compare across different classes. So it takes the gender, their sport class, and their time to calculate a points in order to rank them. You can see that points right beside their time. It's just to the left. So we see the highest point score so far for Katie Cosgriff at 8:43. Tess Rowliff, though, right on about a second over her Canadian record time of 2:56, so she comes in at 2:57.82.
Right now she has the highest para point score as well at 979.
Anytime we can see anything close to 1,000, it's really indicated they're in a really good situation in order to qualify for this team, but not many over 1,000.
So 3:22.8 is a split time by Hannah Ouellette. Sitting in lane 0, as we mentioned. She's in the SM5 category in this event. 4:25.10 done in heat number 1 by Ella Tucker was a new Canadian record. There's just over 15 meters left to go freestyle. That's swimming for the Saskatoon Lasers. Couple meters left to go. Hannah Ouellette in lane number 0, SM5 category. To the wall, 4:23.06. Well, looks like that is now the new Canadian record.
There you go.
SM5. Swim by Ouellette. Good finish to heat number 2 of the women's para multi-class 200-meter individual medley event.
Ella Tucker, the Canadian record holder for just over 5 minutes. Might be a record. And we're getting set for the men's event. There's only one heat of this. 6 athletes contesting in this 200 IM multi-class. We have one of our national record holders in this as well, Nick Bennett. He's had a phenomenal week so far. He will be competing in the SM14 category.
The crowd acknowledging those 2 Canadian records that we saw in Heat 1 and Heat 2. This is event 318. This is the men's 200 IM. As we mentioned, we have 1 heat here.
Alec Elliott, a returning Paralympian. This is probably his best chance at qualifying for the team, so we'll have to keep an eye on the point score. SM10 is his category. 2:17.40 is that A standard. He comes in with a time right around 2:20 flat. We also have to keep an eye, as I mentioned, on Nick Bennett, so his Canadian record stands at 2:07.98.
And Bennett, somebody who's been swimming very good all weekend long. He swims at the Red Deer Catalina Swim Club, and as you mentioned, his coach is his sister.
Yeah, so in the men's program, as mentioned, the 9 that are qualified through with that A standard on the standby boarding pass, we have 3 of them being men. Nicholas Bennett, we also have Sebastian Masabi, who we saw earlier in the program, and then Reed Maxwell. So 2 of them in this heat. Maxwell also having the meat of his career at this point. Every time we see him swim, he's hitting really high para points. He's going personal best. He's hitting Canadian records. I know in the mixed zone after his races, we've had to be selective about how many times we chat with him, because every time he hits the pool, he's going. Yeah, he's going a new record time.
Well, in this one, he's entered into 2. He's seated in 2:35.97, the Canadian record for the SM8. Category swims here in the 200 IM, a time of 2:34.03. That was set by Philippe Vachon back in 2018.
We'll have to keep an eye on that one for sure.
1:02.19, a good split time here for Bennett in lane number 4. Bennett's got a great back end to this race. Really strong on that breaststroke, really strong on that freestyle as well. Maxwell turning in lane number 6, a split time of 1:10.55. Bennett powering here through to the breaststroke. See if he can do maybe 1:37 or so here at the 150 mark. Well, he is 1:37.49. Canadian record of his. He could be challenging for that.
Oh, he looks great.
Look at this. Great tempo on his freestyle, already on the legs and driving.
Yeah.
Again, his mark is 2:07.98, Brittany.
He's an athlete that makes the most of every opportunity to race. Doesn't matter if it's at the preliminaries, it doesn't matter if it's in the finals. He's clear water right now, just shy, it looks like, of his Canadian record.
Right there.
Oh, he did it. He did it.
2:07.68, by 0.3 of a second. What a finish, Nick Bennett.
Awesome swim and a big fist pump as he deserves. A big smile over to his coach, as we mentioned, his sister, Haley. They work incredibly hard as a duo in order to get Nick's dreams realized. New Canadian record.
And Elliott right on his best time at 2:20.0. We'll see how close Maxwell is. Look at that, 2:34.49, just 0.4 of a second. Over the SM8 class record of 2:34.03, but setting himself up really well for tonight in the final of the 200 IM.
Absolutely. And with this only being 1 heat, as long as there are no disqualifications, all 6 of these athletes will get to swim this race again, which is a second chance. It's always fun to see. 1,036 para points there for Nicholas Bennett. So really, really,
yeah, one heck
really
of a
strong
swim out of
swim.
Bennett this morning, and he looked so good on all of those strokes. But to me, to my eye, especially on that breaststroke on freestyle, he really did a good job on the back end of that 200 IM.
Yeah, and he is gunning after that 200 freestyle world record here this week. He set it after the Canadian Open. He set the Canadian record that week, but he's really keeping an eye on that world record mark. So that's something else to look forward to. We still have 2 full days of the program after today, Jason. So do not go anywhere. Do not worry. The action continues. And speaking of the action continuing, that's the wrap on our official events. Yeah,
That's right. So that is the end of day 5 preliminaries. A reminder to tune in at 5:45 p.m. today for the pre-show for day 5 finals with a 6 p.m. start for racing. You can catch all of the action live on CBC Online or on the GEM app here at the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Trials presented by Bell. Next up, we're moving to the time trials. We've got the 50-meter freestyle, the 200 IM, as well as the 800-meter freestyle. And as we mentioned earlier, this is an opportunity for our swimmers to prime themselves for events happening later on, or maybe get an extra event that they're not swimming as a part of the regular meet. And again, a reminder, these times don't count towards any A or B or junior finals. But now our official times swimmers can use later on this season. So first up will be the women's 50-meter freestyle with 5 heats in the event. So we'll be starting down at the scoreboard end of the pool. Good morning this morning, Brittany. More exciting swims coming up tonight. That 100-meter freestyle, I keep saying 4, I want to say about the
4 by 100, I know.
Qualifying, because we have an opportunity to get, again, in that event, a few swimmers who are not yet named to the team, but do have plenty of experience and plenty that they could bring to the Canadian team.
Well, and is there a chance that we see Alexiak in an individual event? Like, she's not that far off of that A standard. So, again, there's a lot riding on this race, and we've talked about how the job to get done is the placing. The job to get done often isn't about going a best time, but it's more about hitting those standards. And it'll be very difficult for her to get right near her best, but for Penny to be her best in a couple years is a really encouraging point. And of course, to see Penny Alexiak ride the water like she was this morning, I think for all of us swim fans is a really comforting feeling.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have that as well as many other exciting races tonight, but this is the time trials.
Look out in lane number 9.
27.53, that's lane number 8, Sophia Kishak. Etobicoke swimming, winning our first heat.
She's had a really good week so far in these time trials. Seen her a few times winning her heat. Great job for the young E-swimmer. Out of lane number 8. Yeah, that was my apologies. I looked up at the top of my screen. It's somewhere up there. Wasn't lane 9, it was lane 8. She wins our heat 1, the women's 50 free time trial.
Heat number 2. from Pacific Coast. And there goes Rupert, 27.43. It looks like that's a new top seed time. We've just had a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Looks like we are back up and running
We are
now.
back. We are back, and we're ready to chat about this heat and the upcoming ones for sure.
So Hannah Bennett will be up next in lane number 4 for heat number 4. University of Calgary swimmers entered in a time of 27.16. Swimmer in the water in lane number 5. That's Bridget Burton from UBC Thunderbirds. Strong out of lane number 6. That's Maya McCann from the P in Canada. Entered 27.23. All to the wall together. This began in a time of 27.24, winning our 4th heat. Our 5th and our final heat of the 50-meter freestyle, and the 50-meter freestyle, an event not yet contested here at the Olympic trials. Again, this is the time trials. The 50-meter freestyle for the men will happen on Saturday. 50-meter freestyle for the women on Sunday.
Yeah, and important to note that this event here, there is no qualification implication. So all the athletes entered, just looking to hit good times. Some of them may not have qualified for the individual events in this one, so another chance to stand up and race.
Here we go with our 5th heat. The top seed is lane number 4, Julianne Moore from the University of Calgary. She's entered in 26.14. Number 5, Alexandra Turvey from Richmond Rapids, doing pretty good. She's got length ahead of the field as they come to the finish. It's going to be Turvey in 5, 26.33. That is the end of the women's 50-meter freestyle.
6 heat on the men's side.
We got a few no-time entries in the 50-meter freestyle, so we'll see if we get a few surprises out of this.
It's always dangerous.
Never really know what's going to happen with those.
That's what makes it so fun. And unattached athletes as well. Some big question marks. We also see a couple stars here. So the star, if you do see the heat sheet, implies that they're an international athlete, not eligible for any qualifications. Of course, this race already not eligible for qualifications, so nothing to be keeping an eye on. But Josh Liendo with the national record in this event, 21.61. That was set back in 2022, though.
And Josh has been swimming so good here at the Canadian Olympic trials. We're expecting some good swims out of him as he comes to the, well, he still has a 100-meter butterfly and the 50-meter freestyle to go.
Well, another example of having to be patient, because yesterday was his first kind of real race on day 4, and then his big events are on day 6 and 7.
Some speed happening here in lanes 3 and 5. Some of our no-time swimmers, Oliver Feng and Finn Tuck, and 23.78. That's lane number 5, Finn Tuck from ROC Swimming.
And making the most of that nice draft there in lane number 4. A big 1-second drop for Jet Virgie, 26.34.
Down from his 25.75 sea time. He was the only swimmer in that heat that actually had a sea time in the 50 free. That's a good best time for him. As we move on to heat number 2, Noah Weaver in lane number 4 from Island Swimming as their top seed at 25.71. They go. Lane number 0 at the bottom of your screen. Lane number 9 at the top. Good start out of lane number 3. That's Hito Lee from Nepean, Canada. He's got a sea time at 26.06. tight field here in the men's 50-meter freestyle, our second heat of the time trial event. Time 25.38 out of lane number 1, Evan Valeshig from the Hayak Swim Club. 25.38, that is a drop of nearly a full second.
He looks pretty happy about it, which is great. A lot of big drops in that heat. Most were entered with 26 or higher, and we had almost the entire heat under that 26-second barrier.
Drops, taking advantage of these time trials for our swimmers to get another event in on the day.
Oliver Dawson chose to do the 50 freestyle here this morning.
Oliver Dawson swimming in lane number 2, the winner of the men's 200-meter breaststroke. 16-year-old. Very likely a member of the Junior Pan Pacific team this summer. Dawson seeded at a time of 25.12. The top seed in our third heat is Isaac Allen from Whitby, entered in 24.91. Down in lane 8, moving nicely, Harish Kaltugu from Barrie, a time of 25.22. And lane number 4, that's Isaac Allen from Whitby, 24.21.
A really solid race there. Did Dawson do breaststroke?
Dawson opted to do breaststroke, hence the 28.77.
I was keeping my eyes on the middle of the pool, and then I look at the time. I said he must have been doing something different.
So was I. To be honest, I wasn't watching that far back, so I assumed that it was breaststroke. Heat number 3. And out of the St. John's Legends Swim Club from St. John's, Newfoundland. It's Aiden Carroll in lane number 4. First time we've seen one of the St. John's Legends so far this weekend. 24.50 is his seat time in lane number 4. 5 and 6 looking strong. Jack Hayo and Jack Cameron. Check out the top of your screen, Ian Cameron, University of Calgary, driving hard on the outside. I think it's going to be Cameron. 23.70. That's a full second faster than his seat time. Nicely done for the swimmer from the University of Calgary Swim Club.
Outside smoke there. Again, 4 heats down now. We have 2 more to go of this time trial 50 freestyle.
Second last heat in the 50-meter freestyle. Ovish Karuhu in lane number 4. National swimmer from Mauritania. 23.95 is his seat time, swimming in lane number 4. Very tight at the wall. 23.95 again, Ovish Karuhu, swimming for the University of Regina Dolphins. Winner. His country's representative at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. 6th and final heat of the 50-meter freestyle this morning from Mount Pearl. Swimming in lane number 4 is Chris Weeks. Our top seed time in this event at 23.14.
Truly, we're getting down to the wire here. We've talked in the 100 free the importance of kind of breathing at the right time, but this 50 free you'll often see swimmers don't even take a breath. If they take one, it should come only once.
And here we go, lane 5 looking strong. Stuart Binder, 23:36 from the Surrey Knights. It was Luke Stuart Binder. Very seat time, but winning our 6th in our final heat. Next will be the women's 200-meter individual medley, and we've got 5 heats in this event. This is an event that will be contested on the weekend on Sunday for the women. This is the first of 5 heats. We see the flags going back into the pool. The backstroke portion of this race. In her first heat is Gemma Metzi from the Milton Marlin swim team. She's entered in 2:33.73. Here we go, the first of 5 heats in the women's 200-meter individual medley as part of our time trial session this morning. Swimmer entered in 2:33.73 in lane number 4. Got some fast action here happening in the outside lanes. In lane number 1, it is Avery Knight at the bottom of your screen from the Barrie Trojans. Lane number 8 at the top, Blakely McBride from Strathcona County. Knight through first and 30.04 through the 50 meters of butterfly. Now in lane number 5, we've seen her in these time trials throughout the weekend. Mariana Cabiza-Scarzon from Etobicoke. She's entered not that far back at 2:34.33. Is a split time for Cabiza-Scarzon in lane number 5. She's gained ground on the field. Everybody's still trying to catch up to Knight. Knight now moving ahead and in front of Cabiza-Scarzon. Lane number 2, Hilary Gow, University of Calgary. Too far back at a 108.43 split. Of freestyle left to go, and Avery Knight first at 1:52.91, nearly 2 seconds up. Hilary Gow on Hilary Gow, sitting in lane number 2, and Avery Knight seat time at 2:39.80. Well underneath that, with just over 15 meters of freestyle to go. Cabiza-Scarzon on lane number 5 is moving nicely to close this one out as well. Swimmer in lane number 5. Good momentum as we come to the finish. Cabiza-Scarzon 2:27.76. That's a good 7-second drop.
She's had such a great week here at these trials. We've seen her win. I think I can go out confidently saying we've seen her win every heat in these time trials that she's had.
We've seen her all weekend long, a week long so far. So a good swim in heat number 1. A nice drop. Ready for our second heat in the 200-meter individual medley. Haley Oak in lane number 4 from Muskoka. Going to be a top seed in this one at 2:30.69.
Muskoka, the home of Summer McIntosh's happy place. The cottage up there. She said a few times she tries to get out there on her summer birthday weekend with a few friends to disconnect. You don't really get too much time off when you're Summer McIntosh.
a great place to disconnect and relax. Muskoka, beautiful in that neck of the woods.
It's as beautiful as it gets for this Ontario people. We're not the Alberta, we're not quite as fortunate as our Alberta friends that have quite literally the beautiful mountains at their fingertips.
Well, beautiful spots all over this great country of ours, from coast to coast to coast.
That is true.
And everybody looking for that opportunity to represent the great country of Canada here at this Olympic Trials event. Olympic Games happening this summer, end of July through the beginning of August in Paris, France. Those of you joining us now, we are into heat number 2 of the 200-meter individual medley for the women. This is a time trial event, so not a part of our regularly scheduled events. But an opportunity for these swimmers here that are at the swim meet to swim a couple more races as this one comes to the 100-meter wall in lane number 4, Haley Oak from Muskoka. She's again, as we mentioned, the top seed in heat number 2 at 2:30.69. She's going to be at the halfway point, out in front in 1:08.21.
Breaststroke often where we see the difference in leaders, some of the changes. We often have some people waiting to make their move on the breaststroke leg.
And certainly at the younger and more novice ages, there's a huger discrepancy between really the abilities of any one of these athletes in the 4 strokes. But you well know, as you get up to that high international level, there's no big swing between one stroke or another. And you know, as amazing as Summer McIntosh has been swimming, she will still have her hands full when she gets to Paris, up against some of the very best in the world in her events. Obviously with much tighter fields when the entire world's population of swimming centers down on Paris, France this summer. A good race here in lanes 3 and 4. The Oak still with the lead in lane number 4 from Muskoka. Lane number 3 moving up. That's Catherine Warkentin from Etobicoke swimming. Lots of youngsters from Etobicoke taking advantage of these time trials this week, and it's Oak at a 2:28.03. Best time by Catherine Warkentin, also at 2:28, 2:28.81. Etobicoke swimming.
Faster than their entries here. And maybe one day they'll be able to swim it as an event in the program. We're just notching down those personal best times.
Go with our 3rd heat of the 200-meter individual medley. Samax Maria Tioni Karaginius in lane number 4, 2:27.89 is the top seed in this heat. So shot around on the screen, getting ready to dive in. Here we go now, heat number 3 of 5 of the women's 200 individual medley as part of our time trial session. Good start by Karaginius in lane number 4. Looking pretty good through the first 25 meters of butterfly. She's seated again, as we mentioned, 2:27.89. It's only a 1.4 second difference between 1st and 10th in this heat. See how close this field swims as she gets to the first 50 meters, 29.66, 0.5 of a second up on Chi-Chi Sun. Swimming out of lane number 1 from the Canadian Dolphins. Robin Zadeka in lane number 5, looking nice. She's up there in the middle of the pool. Represents Western University. Sun Karaginius, and now Vadeka challenging for the lead as it comes to the 100. Karaginius in lane number 4. She turns around first, 1:07.0. And then it is Sun in lane number 1, followed by Videka in lane number 5, your top 3 for the first 100 meters of this 200-meter individual medley.
Of course, as always, we keep an eye on the breaststroke, see where the lead changes. Looks like we have a solid swim at the top of our screen there. It's lane number 7.
That's Zoe Fournier. You're right, Brittany. She is really moving on this breaststroke leg. So she's going to take over the lead as she comes to the 150-meter mark. She does, putting 152.3. She's got a half second up on Sonia Bakshi in lane number 6 from the University of Calgary. Actually at 152.8 as they move on to the freestyle. 3, 4, 5, and 6 all swimming even abreast. Trying to get up to Fournier in lane number 7. Robin Videka having a good finish in lane number 5. She is now moving up to the front of the pack. And Videka from Western University, 2:28.13 is her entry time. See if she can get underneath that as she puts her head down to the finish. 26.23, a good best time for her. Almost 2 seconds in heat number 3. Next up is going to be heat number 7. Or sorry, heat number 4. This is heat number 4 of 5 of the women's 200-meter individual medley. Top seed at lane number 4, Shutong Du. Representing Richmond Hill Aquatics, 2:26.94 is her time. We saw a 2:26.2. Previous heat by Robin Videka. This is our fastest time so far here this morning in the women's 200-meter individual medley time trial. Lane number 5. It's Maisie Muscard. She looks pretty strong here through the first 50 meters of butterfly.
She looks really strong here at the 50. 29.59.
It's by far and away the fastest first 50 split we've seen so far out of these women here in the 200 IM. Muscard still out in front. We do have some of these backstrokers making their way up. Lane number 1 is doing a good job. That's Sarah Hogan from Summerland. Sorry, Campbell River Killer Whales. Sarah Hogan. Beside her in lane number 2. That's Harper Lipton from North York. Using this backstroke leg to claw back a little bit of space here on your race leader as they come to the 100. 105.33 is the split time for Muscard.
Muscard continuing to move well here. We'll have to see if the breaststroke is one of her strengths or weaknesses, but definitely on that backstroke with 35.74 split. She was by far and away the best in the back.
Well, we've got a pretty long and strong looking breaststroke coming here out of lane number 4, Shutong Du. See if she can make up some of that ground. She does sit back by more, almost 2 body lengths on Muscard, so she's got a bit of ground to make up.
We'll talk about different strategies, though. These two are entered within 4 100ths of each other, and we've seen a completely opposite race out of the two of them.
Here they go at the 150-meter mark. Muscard's still going to have the lead in lane number 5. She turns at 150.19. And Shutong Du 2 seconds back at 152.6. I'm not sure she's got enough space to make up that ground on the freestyle. You said these two swimmers entered very close to each other, just 4 100ths of a second apart. 2:26.98 is the seat time for Muscard in lane number 5. And lane number 1 moving up. Sarah Hogan from Campbell River. She's actually having an amazing freestyle. And it's Hogan at a 2:25.61. Takes almost 2 full seconds off of her seat time, winning our 4th heat.
Took her a second to read the time, and then we got a big smile.
Happy with that one. Now on to our 5th and our final heat of the women's 200-meter individual medley. Now top seed overall in this event, Eloise Allen swimming in lane number 4 from the UBC Thunderbirds. Time of 2:20.22.
Athlete that's seen some success on the U Sports stage.
Look at this underwater. Great start by her right to the 15-meter mark. Setting herself apart from the rest of the field is Allen in lane number 4. 2:20.22 is that seat time of hers. 29.5 is one of her faster splits on the butterfly. Here, 29.33 is the time for Allen, followed very closely by lane number 5, Annie Courtmanche from Cam O. 9.6 is the split time for Anishka Frickleton from eSwim, swimming out in lane number 8. Too tight through that first 50 meters. Courtmanche now almost dead even with Allen. 35 meters of backstroke. Moving up in lane number 6 is Tabitha Main. Main now from Windsor Aquatic Club contending for the lead as they come to the 100. Allen still with a slight lead on the field. He's Allen turning at 1:05.42, a half second up on lane number 5, Courtmanche. And now let's see if there is any change here in the breaststroke.
Eloise Allen continues to move well through the water, though. I love her technical breaststroke. She's getting high in the water, undulating well. Nice finish with each of her strokes. Gearing up to maybe go faster than her entry time here.
Well, we'll see what we get out of Allen on this breaststroke. She's doing a good job. She's extending her lead on the entire field as they come to the 150-meter mark. Eloise Allen will take more than a 2 body length lead into that last 50 as she splits 1:45.54, 40.1 on the breaststroke, so she needs to be 34.4 or better to get under that entry time. 2:20, well, that would be under 2:20 flat. So I'm sure she would look to see that barrier broken. You can see her extending that lead with every single stroke here. Good job. Composure by Allen in lane number 4 as we come to the end of the 200-meter individual medley for our women this morning. And Allen just under that 2:20 mark. A good swim. I'm sure she can be happy. That 2:19.86. Closing off heat number 5.
It's always nice to get under that 2:20 barrier. Another fist pump there out of lane 7, 2:23.49. From Kishu, Marley Windsor.
And here we go with our next event. It's going to be the men's 200-meter individual medley. 5 heats, just like we did with the women. Top seed in this first heat is going to be Jackson Kwan from the Cascade Swim Club. 2:23.75 is his entry time. He's up against his teammate swimming beside him in lane number 3. That's Louis Zhao. And in lane number 5, Matteo Mancini representing the Newmarket Stingrays. Some good starts by our youngsters in the middle of the pool as this one gets underway.
Teammates. Always fun to watch them go neck and neck. This is how you get to an event like the Olympic trials, right? You push each other, the age groupers become the senior national team members, but it starts somewhere, and here we're seeing a great example of teammates that probably challenge each other every day in practice, have the chance to challenge each other here at the Olympic trials.
Well, I think you're right. We've got there's training partners, competitors. As we said, always pushing each other. So 28.96, a good push by Kwan there on the butterfly leg. A couple seconds back with Zhao is swimming in lane number 3, but picking up a little bit on this backstroke. Both Zhao and Kwan more as breaststrokers, so we'll see how they do as they get through this backstroke leg and turn on for them. They're their current specialities, what they qualified for in these Olympic trials. Kwan first through the 100 at 1:07.83. Followed by lane number 5, Mancini. Mancini turning at 1:10. Mancini with a seat time of 2:26.85, and Zhao seated at 2:32. breaststroke. So Jackson Kwan, your race leader in the middle of your screen in lane number 4, is being chased by Zhao in lane number 3. And good breaststroke leg happening out in lane number 5 by Matteo Mancini.
He's moving really well through the water. You can see a wide entry with each pull. Catch, nice. Head position, also nice.
Looks like we've got 3 breaststrokers here with some solid splits between 38.5 and 39.0.
And the final push home.
And it's still advantage Kwan in lane number 4. He's coming in with a 2:23 as his entry time, so he needs to be 36.9 or faster to get underneath that. It looks like he should be able to do that. Zhao moving up as well. Zhao only entered at 2:32. It's going to be a huge drop for him. And Jackson Kwan at 2:20.9.
Wow.
First heat.
You got to assume that's a race he hasn't done in a while, because a 11-second drop here. Pretty impressive.
Some good drops. All 3 of these swimmers, new lifetime best.
We're 3 for 3 in that heat.
Let's see if we can keep those good vibes going as we roll on to heat number 2.
Always good vibes here with you, Jason.
Always. Very good vibes this morning. I think Brittany on those swims, really looking forward, as we've already both mentioned, to tonight and those final swims and some opportunities for more names onto that Olympic or Paralympic team. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, the potential to have a new name on that men's 200 backstroke side. I think seeing how the veterans step up in the women's 100 freestyle, but also Kelsey Wog just looked so smooth in the water. That's definitely one of the races I'm most looking forward to tonight.
Well, we saw how relaxed Sydney Pickram was in her 200 breaststroke. I mean, they took 2 sort of polar opposite strategies this morning. Wog was really sort of out and going for it. You saw her under Olympic qualifying time. Pickram, she's been underneath that cut already. She was much more relaxed. But I think when it comes down to it tonight, the 2 of them are going to be battling pretty much stroke for stroke that entire race.
Right. Yeah, it is definitely, as you mentioned, Jason, it's total opposite strategy, right? Pickram wanted her center lane. She wanted to swim a smart, smooth race. And if anything, she's kind of now going in as the underdog, whereas going into this race, they would probably have been considered in the same conversation. But sometimes athletes like to kind of get the chatting off of their back. They like to know that they are internally be aware of the potential they have, but let their swim do the talking, I guess is the best way to put it. And this morning, Kelsey definitely let her swim do the talking, but Pickram, very relaxed. I would by no means be worried by that swim. She was not appearing to be putting too much effort into it. But those 2 are the 2 within that heat, I think, that can get under that Olympic qualifying time.
So it'll be some exciting races there. We saw some solid 200-meter backstrokes. It's nice to see the youngster, Aiden Norman, take a full second off of his best time. He's still a little bit over that standard, but all but that last 50 was on pace, really on Canadian record pace. So we'll see if he's got a little bit more in the tank tonight. Now with just over 25 meters left to go in heat number 2. It's lane number 5, Nathan Thomas from eSwim. Got the lead on lane number 3, Brian Detz, also from eSwim. So again, you see another back-to-back race with 2 teammates pushing each other here through to the end. This time from Etobicoke Swimming, as it is a time of 2:10.62. Winning our second heat, that is lane number 5, Nathan Thomas. That's a 7-second drop, Brittany.
Yeah, and he's almost shocked at that, but an awesome swim. And he looked over to his teammate, which is the gesture you just saw. Awesome to see, waving up to mom and dad. Athletes having fun here in the time trials.
Some good swims, 6 and 7-second drops for the 2 Etobicoke teammates. Our second heat of the 200-meter individual medley for the men. On to heat number 3, and Jack Bowen, crest swimming. Saw his brother make the final in the 200-meter individual, 200-meter butterfly earlier in the regular part of our program. Start by Lowen in lane number 4. He's entered in a 2:13.66.
Out like a rocket there. We see lane number 2. Brady McPherson-Lewison.
Look at this scoring, 26.28. For the Golden Horseshoe Aquatic Club, he entered in a time of 2:14.85. Splitting the entire field by almost a second and a half on that 50 meters of butterfly. Jack Lone in lane number 4 starting to move up with a solid backstroke. He was 27.90 through the first 50 meters of butterfly. His way up to McPherson-Lewison. Current race leader and leader at the 100-meter mark in 1:00.49, 0.8 of a second up on Lowen in 4. Lowen looking pretty strong for that first 15 meters of breaststroke. He's almost up and to the race leader. It looks like he'll be there by the first 25. Lowen now taking over the lead for crest swimming in lane number 4. Again, that entry time of his is a time of 2:13.66. Here we go with the 150-meter mark. Jack Lowen in lane number 4, back with the lead at 1:40.6.
We saw his brother earlier in the 200 butterfly, another swimming family. Yeah, the fastest breaststroke split there, at least in the middle of the pool for Lowen, 39.36. Saw some fast breaststroke in the outside lane 7, Daniel High, and also for Eastman on lane 0, Noah McNeil.
A good split by McNeil down to 37.5. He's 5th right now as we come to the end, and it is still Lowen in lane 4. And it's going to be Lowen from crest swimming winning 2:12.86, a half second. A little bit more than a half second off of that C time. By him, Jack Lowen, crest swimming winning heat number 3. Next up will be heat number 4, and this one will be led in lane number 4 by Scarborough's Declan Kay, entering a time of 2:12.55 seconds. So heat 4 is Declan Kay in lane number 4, the top seeded swimmer. Lane number 0 at the bottom of your screen. Making his way out pretty quick is Alvin Zensong from Camo. He's entered in 2:13.43, having a pretty strong butterfly. This is lane number 7, Robin Domingo. And Domingo is swimming for McGill University out in a time of 26.69 seconds.
Another E-swimmer in this heat. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about, you know, the next generation of E-swim, a club that means a lot to me, of course, but new head coach as of the last year, Mark Speckman. He came over from GB, so he was working just north of London, an Olympian in his own right. We're seeing a few of the international coaches make their way over to Canada, but it is great to see a club program kind of revitalize itself. They've got some fresh energy, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future has in store for E-swim.
E-swim, one of the strongest programs historically inside of Canada. Been around for an awful long time.
Used to be Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola swimming.
Coca-Cola swimming.
Lots of legendary coaches have coached there, so Mark is adding his name to the list. And
lots of legendary swimmers have come through that program, not least of which is current swimming superstar Summer McIntosh. She started her swimming there, along with you, Brittany. 1:39.43 is the split time out of lane number 5. He's out in front. That's Audric Dufour. And Dufour, he's swimming for Samac, entered in a time of 2:12.70. It has the lead with 25 meters left to go. Looking very strong, nice and smooth on this freestyle. You see him breathing to his right. Nice steady kick. And a quick tempo as he comes now to the flags. That's 5 meters left to go. And it's going to be Dufour in lane 5. New best time for him at 2:11.62. So our fifth and our final heat of the 200-meter individual medley. Oh, sorry, 200-meter individual medley for men in the time trials. Top seed is lane number 5, Kieran Stone. Stone from the Brantford Aquatic Club, entered in 209.84. .211.6 in the previous heat. Just letting everybody know that after this 200-meter individual medley heat, we're going to have a swim-off for the 200-meter butterfly.
What a brutal swim-off. That is a tough one.
Certainly not an easy event to have a swim-off again. To swim that event 3 times potentially in the day. Heat, swim-off, and then finals. The version of the final that ends up being A, B, or junior. 105 is split time for lane number 3. That's Patrick McCloy, University of Calgary Swim Club. McCloy entered in a 209.90.
Moving really well in the water right now. The Calgary teammates going back and forth.
They are, and you see some good breaststroke out of lane 0. That's at the bottom of your screen. Aiden Luknar to make his move on the field, but still Kieran Stone out in front for Brantford, swimming in lane number 5, 138.47. 10th of a second ahead of Patrick McCloy from the University of Calgary, but McCloy great underwater to push himself back up to the front. 15 meters left to go. It's very close between McCloy in lane number 3 and Stone in lane number 5. Stone now making a final push to the wall. And it is Patrick Stone in lane number, Kieran Stone in lane number 5 from Brantford. Best time for him, 2:08.49. That finishes off our 200-meter individual medley. It looks like we do have this 200-meter butterfly swim off. The information on that swim as soon as we have it. And after that, we'll be followed by 3 heats of the 800-meter freestyle.
Doing her butterfly 4 laps of the pool.
Here it is. Looks like we've got a swimmer from Langley swimming in lane number 4. Camo athlete in lane number 5. Heard through the PA that they swam 2:07.95 this morning. So this would likely be for either a position or alternate position into our junior final. So we've got Minik Park in lane number 4 from Langley and Edouard Daniel Rousseau from Camo in lane number 5. Go, and so we just heard it was 2:07.95 in the preliminaries for these two. Checking on those results for everybody here. Junior age swimmers. Looks like they alternate position, so first in line.
Well, it is a great chance when you are fighting for alternate, because at the end of the day, the likeliness that you race tonight is not high, so getting another chance at it this morning is a really, really great opportunity.
Take advantage of it. All you need is a lane, as you've said many times, Brittany. So Park in lane number 4 from Langley is out in front here first. He does turn in a 1:01.51, so that's exactly where he was this morning. He's got a 1:01.44 on the way out for his 100. In his preliminary swim, he's sitting 0.7 of a second up on Rusu in lane number 5. Rusu splitting a 1:02.26. Rusu was out a bit faster this morning at 1:00.05, so we'll see if he's managed to save anything up here for the final push. 1:35.2 to 1:36.0. Regardless of the time that they put up here this morning, the winner of this heat will be ahead, whether it's for alternates or another position. So here we go, with 15 meters left to go. And Minnick Park in lane number 4. Looks like he's going to hold on. He's led this one right from the gun. Langley Olympians, Minnick Park in lane number 4 wins our time trial. Swim off. 7:51.
A little faster than the previous prelim time, so got to be happy with that. All you can ask for is to keep dropping on your previous best, so it takes about 0.4 off of his preliminary time here.
Good swim by Park. Go ahead, we'll see if that pays off for him. But as we said, at least they got another opportunity to swim, regardless if they get into the junior final or not. Move on to our next event, the 800-meter freestyle. Now this is a mixed event, so we have both women and men swimming in this time trial. We have 3 heats. Heat number 1, your top seed is going to be Alexia Morgan, swimming in lane number 4 from the Halifax Trojan. She's entered in time of 9:40.30.
Ça va être le rythme mix de la 3 séries.
The first of 3 heats and the last event of the time trial session this morning, the 800-meter freestyle.
And we're changing gears a little here. 16 laps of the pool. Back to the race with the counters, lots of strategy.
Of course, we had the men's 800-meter freestyle as a part of the Olympic trials program last night. Unfortunately, we didn't get any qualifiers out of that
Great
event.
swim, though, for Timothy Barbeau.
Some very good, what a finish by Barbeau from Neptune right at the very end. Absolutely crushed that last 75 meters. Really moving. I'm sure he was very happy with that swim. It was a nice drop for him.
You really never know with distance races who's left something in the tank, and that final, even on the international level, whether it's age group or senior or international, when you watch final 100 of a push like the 800 free, especially on the men's side, I feel like as we've gotten more aware of this event in the men's program, of course, it was only added to the Olympic roster. The Olympic schedule is a better word to use, but it was only added in Tokyo, so this will only be the 2nd Olympics. But on the world stage, it continues to be an exciting one. That the rate, it's a middle ground between the 400 and the 1500, and it causes a little bit of a different, I guess, roster of athletes to come through and to be able to contest. And so far, so good in terms of competitiveness across the board.
Yeah, I think that the 800s, you know, for the men, it's been an exciting addition to that slate of events for the Olympic Games. Some very exciting finishes to that race in Tokyo. I'm looking forward to that one in Paris. But interesting, the very best distance swimmers in the world. I mean, from the female perspective, it's been dominated most recently and most oftenly by Katie Ledecky. But on the men's side, it's spread around a fair number of countries between North America and Europe, certainly. is the 200-meter mark. So 1/4 of this race done, as we mentioned yesterday during the 800s. Some of his favorite strategies. Swimming 4 200s and sort of descending your effort as you go through. Jackson splits 2:15.48. She's 3 seconds up on Eva Labrie and Alexia Morgan, swimming right together at 2:18.8. Jax is lapping 35.1s, and she's entered here in the time of 9:41. So anything better than 36 lows, 112s would be pacing her to be underneath that seed time. So it's ahead of that pace here right now as she comes to the 300-meter mark.
Coach along the side waving her on. He looks pretty happy so far. We've gotten to watch in these distance races some of the coaches go up and down the pool, and I was joking, but they really do put in the steps and the mileage with their athletes right up into the wire when it's an exciting race or when they're close to a personal best or a new standard. They are having to give the energy there as well.
Well, it's interesting to watch those various hand signals that everybody's got their own little coded language as to what it necessarily means. I'm trying to interpret a few of those from up here, but I think at the very basic level, the more action, the more bigger the movements for waving means get yourself going. We're encouraging them along. Now to the 350-meter mark. Jax still out in front. Fair margin, turning at 4:01.7. She's lapping those 35 mids, so 1:11 pace. They're under 9:30. If she can hold onto that pacing over the back half of the race. A nice drop for her. She's entered, as we mentioned, at a 9:41.11. Coach giving her the 2 arms up. Suspect indicating that she's doing a good job in holding pace here. 37.72. Pace has crept up just a little bit. We'll see if she can bring it on this back half of the race. She turns the 35.97 split on her 850.
And that is one of the telltale signs of where you're at the halfway mark. Of course, that was a 400-meter flip, so 4:37.72. Her personal best, or at least her entry time, as mentioned, was a 4:41.11. So right now, pacing well under that.
This one's happening here in our first heat of the 800. Some good swims in the 1500s through that set of time trials the other day. So Jacques just creeping up a little bit on that pacing at 36.0, but she's still on pace to be underneath that seed time. You don't want to see it creep up that much more. Coach trying to get her to put a little bit of more leg into her stroke as she comes to the 500. So she's been 35.9, 36.0. We'll see if she can bring that pace back under control here at the 500, turning at 5:49.9. 300 meters left to go. She sits ahead of lane number 4, Alexia Morgans. To go for Emma Lee Jax, swimming in lane number 5, very Trojan swimmer, 6:26.2. Maintaining that lead on the field. She's actually gaining ground by nearly a second. Well, a little bit more than a second there on each 50. Pacing well to be underneath her lifetime best. At the 600-meter mark.
This is where you aim to see these athletes kicking into the next gear. We talked a lot about the descending strategy in distance swimming, but ideally each 200, you try to reset a little bit. With this last 200, it really is just about bringing in the legs.
Well, we should start to see a little bit more of that white water on her feet as she picks up each of these 50. So she did turn at 7:02, so she can still get under 9:30, which again would be a good drop from that seat time. 9:41. Lengths left to go for Jacques.
And her legs have started coming back in the mix, which is great. The final push, of course, usually comes with 50 to 100 meters, but that 200 turn, as a coach and an athlete, as you can see, he's saying, come, bring the legs, because sometimes you need to be reminded when you're in a rhythm in a distance race, you just gotta get those legs back involved. You don't wanna wait until too late.
Here come the bells for Jacques, indicating 100 meters left to go. This is gonna be the 700 meter mark for her. So turning there at 8:15. Wow, maybe 9:27, maybe a little bit quicker. She can get those legs going over this last 75. That's what her coach is trying to take. The side of the pool, she's got her teammates waving her on as well.
Yeah, and under that 9:30 would be awesome, as she's entered in a 9:41.
So here we go, last ball for Emma Lee Jackson, lane number 4 from the Barrie Trojans. 8:51.6 is the split time, and you can see her starting to pick it up. The tempo has picked up a little bit. Throwing in a few harder kicks here. She's got just over 25 meters left to go in our first heat.
And there's her coach along the side and teammates cheering her on, hoping she can get a new personal best time here.
Looks like she's going to be able to manage that with just 5 meters left to go. 9:41.11 is the seat time, and a nice little drop down to 9:26.49 in that first heat of the 800 meter freestyle.
Yeah, and from start to finish, just a strong race there for Jax. Takes a good chunk off her lifetime best, and a good second, I would say, I don't know for sure if it's a negative split, but a good second half there at lane number 2. Rosie Houseman from Calgary finishes the last 50 faster than anyone else in the field. Built into the race well, 9:39.11. That's also much faster than her entry time of 10:24.
So Houseman pleased with that one. 50 seconds off of her seat time. Get ready for heat number 2.
Good reminder, these are mixed time trials, so both male and female athletes are able to enter. We'll see a few men in the next heat, but not this heat. Appears to still be a full women's field of 9. It's great how many athletes are really making the most of these time trials, Jason.
I know, we've been to these, trials for a number of years, and often there was only a handful of swimmers, and in each of the events, certainly not multiple heats like we're seeing this way. So I think really developmentally, especially for these younger kids, more novice, maybe here for their first trials event, taking advantage of it, it's great to see.
Right, and I think, when these qualification standards are really high, it is hard to come to a trials and have a large roster at a young age, right? You might have one event, you might get 2 events in. There used to be what we call bonus swims, but unfortunately when you put athletes in too many bonus swims, it does take away from, the high performance level of the meet. And so this is kind of a best of both worlds. I really like the setup. Athletes are still able to get in a chance in a race, but until they have that standard, they don't quite get to do it in the same field as the rest of the competitors.
And it's like we've said all along throughout these time trials, great to see them taking advantage of this opportunity. The top seed here in lane number 4. This is our second heat of the 800 meter freestyle. That's Valina Tonix from Island Swimming, 17 years of age. She's entered in a 9:21.50. We just saw a 9:26.49 in the previous heat. It's almost a 15-second drop for the race winner, and that was Emily Jacks from the Barrie Trojans. 4:75 is a split time out of lane number 5. That's Zoe Ratty from the Toronto Swim Club. Ratty here entered in a time of 9:21.74, so that's lapping 35 seconds per 50 the entire way, and she is on pace for that.
And I know it's a bit too early to tell, but getting out really well. There's Zoe Ratty for Toronto at lane number 5. Flips at the 34.5. She can hold, 34s, highs, 35s throughout the race. Gearing up under her time for sure.
Yeah, so she's just 13 years of age. I've seen her already throughout this week, so a few different events.
Talk about athletes that have someone to look up to. It was around 13 years of age when Penny Lexiak really started at the Toronto Swim Club, breaking some records. I remember seeing her in the 11 and 12 category at my home pool at Tobico before we had this lovely facility built, and she was doing time trials just to do, before her 13th birthday, to try to get as many age group records as she possibly could. But coming from somewhere so important and having athletes from your club team reach the levels of success. I know the athletes from the of Toronto Swim Club, so used to seeing that T and thinking University of Toronto, but it's actually Toronto Swim Club, especially when it's the youngsters. So only 13 years of age, she definitely had someone to aspire to be.
Well, Ratty doing a good job here. She's sort of pacing around 9:14, 9:15. Which will be a nice drop from the 9:21 that she's seated at. She's hitting 110s now. 49.41, a second and a half up on Daniela Gongora-Gatan. In the lane number 6, Gongora-Gatan swimming for the Oakville Aquatic Club. Right up there as well. Just on the outside of Gongora-Gatan is Keir Kennedy from Cascade. She's just 7/10 of a second back. Now to the 300 wall. Here goes Ratty around at a time of 3:24.94. So again, 110's just crept up a little bit on that 100. That was a nice lead, and some very good pacing going on here in lanes 2 and 3, 5 and 6.
Yeah, we've had quite a lot of opportunity in these time trials to watch athletes bring out personal best and lifetime best from one another, and that usually comes from a challenger in a lane next to them. So it's great to see. As much as it is a great accomplishment when an athlete has clear water, it also is great to see the athletes coming up to challenge here.
All right, so we've got Ratty flipping around 35.3 on that 50. A nice split by Gongora-Gatan down at 35.1. We also had a 35.1 out of Jade Marquis in lane number 3. And so even though they're sitting back right now, a couple tenths per 50 can make a big difference by the time you get through all 16 of these 50s in this 800.
Absolutely, Jason. A couple tenths each 50 gets you a couple seconds by the end of the race. So
here we go. This is going to be the halfway mark for your race leader in lane number 4, Zoe Ratty. Turning at 4:36.32, 2/10 of a second on a fast-moving Gongora-Gatan in lane number 6. Right there as well is lane number 2, Huni Zhu from Markham. She's just 11 years of age. I have to catch myself each time I look at this, whether it's year of birth or actual age.
this one is actual age, 11 years old. Can you imagine qualifying for an Olympic trials at 11 years old?
Doesn't happen very often. And I believe that we saw her put up a pretty good 1500 freestyle the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, I can't wait to watch her a couple years down the line, because that future of distance swimming right now in Canada is wide open, especially if McIntosh continues to balance the program the way she is and not swim as many of the longer races.
If I remember correctly, I believe that Zhu broke the Ontario provincial mark for 11 years of age.
She did.
She didn't break the 12-year-old, 11, 12-year-old mark. That's held by Summer McIntosh, but she still has another year to get down to that time, of course. I like the looks of this as Huni Zhu in lane number 2 has started to take over the lead. 500 meters, she's going to turn at 5:46.3.
34.5 on that 50. I think the important thing is when you're 11 years old still, you don't have a ton of race strategy under your belt. You're still figuring out how to swim each race and how to pace it. So I can expect we see maybe a negative split out of her, which for those of you at home that don't know, it means that your second half of the race is faster than the first half of the race. Here, of course, it's the 400. So at the 400 meter mark, they would split faster in the second 400 than they do in the first 400.
Well, we'll see what we get to over the next little bit, but a nice pickup by Chu in lane number 2. Backs out with 34.5 up with a 34.9. She is outpacing the rest of the field. She's by 0.4 of a second per 50, and as we mentioned early, those tenths of a second do add up. As we continue on through the race second, it does appear like that is still lane number 6. That is Daniela Gongora-Katan. For Oakville, she's seated with a time of 9:22.62. And Chu in lane number 2 seated at a time of 9:24.32. 200 meters left to go at that wall, splitting 6:55.97, a nice 34.6, so she's dropped the pace again. Just outsplit the rest of her competitors here by a full second on that 50, so a good job on the pickup by the youngster in lane 2.
And I love her technique, just a really smooth stroke. You couldn't tell she's only 11 years old. Technically, she's got a beautiful technique to her. Technically, she's got a beautiful technique. Jason, what am I even saying anymore?
Well, you're stringing together a lot of words there, and I get the impression that you're trying to make. She does look good. She has, through each of these 50s, she has very strong technique for a youngster. You don't see too many 11-year-olds with that kind of poise, certainly not in an event like this.
Well, I talked about the head position at the butterfly, but similar with the freestyle, you just want to stay nice and low with the water. And as she takes a breath to each side, her chin barely gets above the surface of the water. That's exactly what I want to see. Nice and long and strong at the end of each stroke. And she's kept her legs involved throughout this whole race.
Well, one goggle in the water, one goggle out, as the coaches like to say, to measure good technique, and she's doing it there. 35.2 on that 50 at 8:06.27 at the 700-meter mark. Bell's ringing her in. She's got more than a 2-second lead on the rest of the field. She's going to put together a good race, and I think the first 3, 4, 5 swimmers are going to put down some good times here in this heat of 800.
Yeah, and Summer McIntosh's 11 and 12 age group record is 8:51.7. So not going to break that today, but it's definitely not out of reach with another full year to be able to get to that mark.
So here we go, last 50 meters, and look at this. She's dropped it by a full second, 33.6 on that 50. A great swim, round about 9:12, maybe even 9:10. See what she can do on the pickup. 25 meters left to go. She looks so steady. Not a huge change in the way that she swims when she picks up. A little bit quicker on tempo, a little bit stronger on the legs, and now she's really going. Now you see that change. What a flurry at the finish for Chu. 9:12.17, a great swim. 32.2 on that last 50. That's a page of Summer McIntosh's book.
I cannot wait to watch her grow. I love her technique. I love her fight. I love how excited she gets to race. And you can really tell how young she is after you see that smile.
Pretty happy.
Happy with the 9:12. As she should be. I mean, that's a huge personal best. It's also set herself up for a really good success in the future years. Of course, she still's got another year in that 11 and 12 age group category. I do not want to be at a local competition where my 11-year-old self has to compete against Kun Yu.
Well done by the swimmer from Markham, just 11 years old, a lifetime best 9:12.17. That's a 12-second drop. Well done.
Well, we're talking about the Markham Pan Am Center, where I'm sure she does a lot of training as in this facility as well. But, you know, when the Pan Am Games, she's born in 2013, so the Pan Am Games, she was only 2 years old.
Wow. Well, a great legacy from the games. As you mentioned earlier, we talked about this facility, the facility at Markham is used for other aquatic events. Here we go with our third and our final heat. The 800-meter freestyle. Our top seed is Paul McKenzie, University of Calgary Swim Club, 8:23.91. He's got that asterisk beside his name, international swimmer. Get going. Nathan Verslice in lane number 5, teammate and training partner of his, sits back at 8:30. 7 on that first 50 meters, so we'll see if they get settled on pace here early on. Third and final heat of the 800 freestyle. So again, this is, as you mentioned, Brittany, earlier, it is a mixed event, so we have both women and men in this one.
It looks like the middle of the pool in lanes 3, 4, and 5 are 3 men's competitors. And then the rest of the pool filled out by women. But keep an eye right now on lane number 6. Brecken Wormley. 103.3 on her first 100.
European Canada doing quite well. She's got a seat time of 9:07.6.
And the women's 800 yet to be contested here at the trials. So we do not have any times to compare it to at the moment, but we will. 2 more days to go. See that event tomorrow, I believe. We'll double check that for you. Yep, we'll see that event tomorrow. And it is similar setup as the other distance races where we'll see the time finals in the morning for the heats of athletes that aren't in the A or top 10. So we have a junior top 10 and we have an open top 10. And then the remaining competitors will all swim in the morning, hoping to post times that will all be treated equal going into the final.
Number 5, Nathan Verslice taking over the lead here at the 200-meter mark, 2:01.19. He's got a second up on his teammate Mackenzie in lane number 4.
Mackenzie with that star beside his name, international competitor. Jason, do you know where he competes?
He is Australian citizen.
There you go.
Yeah.
Australian citizen, so his times. In this event, the time is pretty tight for qualification. The Australian Olympic qualifiers still yet to happen. They have an Olympic trial similar to us coming up in a couple weeks.
And we've seen that with our own trials pushed here now to the middle, late May, and other countries. Most commonly, the United States is always sort of a last-minute trials, and Australia joining them this time around. The trials in late June. Canada following not long after. Canadian trials will be moved to June later on in this quad. 3:03.33 is a split at 300 for Verslice. He's lapping pretty consistently now, 31.1s, 31.2s. Hold on to 102 mids. He should break 8:20, which would be a good swim for him. He's seated at 8:30.77.
Yeah, he looks to still be building throughout. But Jason, you talked a little bit about the timing of trials and the way that's changed and adjusted for these athletes. That might have a bit of influence as to why Summer McIntosh, can't fully taper for an event like this, knowing the caliber of competition that she's at and knowing that she's quite confirmed to be on the team and across multiple events. Now, if we did the trials in late March, like we sometimes do, it's quite a lot of time to still do a full, what we call cycle in training. Right now in May, like how does a coach approach this time frame between end of May to middle to end of July?
Well, I think your good coaches have always been reverse engineering from the final, the end point. And this time it would be for Paris for the Olympic Games, obviously for Summer McIntosh. And you're absolutely right. When trials were late March, early April, you had 3 full months. The cycle is typically 11 to 13 or 14 weeks at the very most, but so now it is truncated. But I think what we do is that swimmers will go back, they'll relax a little bit, a very short amount of downtime before they start building up again and get themselves into July, some maybe 1 or 2 more moments of competition just to get themselves ready before they have those Olympic Games at the end of the month.
Yeah, and I think there's still plenty of time to build back up. You'd still get a couple really hard weeks of training under your belt. Taper for even our highest sprinters wouldn't start until early July, so it gives you a good solid 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 weeks for an athlete like Summer. Again, Summer's got to plan a taper for an entire week of competition, right? It's not just one day, it's not peaking in one moment, it's peaking across 7 days of competition, because by the end of her program, she'll be a week into racing.
Absolutely, and I think what you'll see a lot of these coaches, they're probably not going to be doing a lot of conditioning work at this point. The conditioning has happened already this year. The conditioning has happened in years and years previously. They'll do a little bit of work so that they can come back down, but a lot of race refinement, I would see, a lot of race pace, rehearsal, as they look to refine those little things. It's a great test for those moving on to the Olympics to see, to come here, find out what they've done, what worked well, how they exacted on that strategies inside their races. If there's something they needed to do better, and refine on more of those things.
A lot of the details, right?
A lot of the details, exactly.
Yeah, the hardest part of their work is over. Of course, it still requires them to work hard for the next couple months, but that bulk of training is usually around that New Year's, Christmas mark, where they really get into the deep training and into the spring. And this is starting to get into the fun part where the racing all unfolds and your work pays off.
Well, and let's not forget that competition is by far and away the single highest form of training. And so for those athletes that are coming here, they're getting a huge bump with the racing, and they don't get an opportunity to race at any higher level unless they do go on to an Olympic Games or a World Championship. So they're getting a good training effect from being in the pool and competing. And you're seeing that here with these youngsters who are taking advantage of these time trial events, or not youngsters, but ones that are maybe not necessarily swim this event. So they're getting a good training bump here and being able to go back, whether or not they're getting ready for the Olympic Games, or the vast majority of our 857 competitors here are not getting ready for the Olympic Games, but later on with the Summer Nationals, the combined swimming championships and junior championships, so that, but which is fortunate enough that they're at the same roundabout time frame that the Olympic Games are. So programs are able to gear, whether you're going to Olympic Games or to the swimming championships, junior championships, the programs can all kind of gear towards the same time frame together.
Right, no, for sure.
So here we go at the end, and it's the bell's out. First two competitors, Paul McKenzie and Nathan Verslice, going through the 700. Verslice has actually dropped his pace down to 30-point highs. 7:12.7, so he might even be able to challenge going at 8:12. We'll see 30.6, so he does need to get 29 seconds here to get under 8:13, and he's really picking it up. He's managed to time this one quite well with the amount of energy that he's got left with 25 meters to go. The University of Calgary's Nathan Verslice in lane number 5. He's seated at an 8:30.77. He's going to take off a huge chunk of time here.
And the coaches and teammates cheering him on. 5 meters to go.
And there's Verslice, 8:13.42, 29.99 on that last 50. A good finish for the 22-year-old from the University of Calgary Swim Club.
And that would have placed really well in the men's 800.
Sure would have. And here we go. Paul McKenzie, 8:27.87. Solid swim for him. I think that Brecken Gormley, our race-leading female in this heat, she's going to be coming here in lane number 6.
And another solid drop there to lane number 3 as well. 8:41.07 for Louis Thomas Demore. Entered in an 8:57.
It's going to be a good best time for Brecken Gormley. Look at this, cracking that 8-minute or that 9-minute mark at 8:59.78.
There's nothing feels better than when you touch the wall and see a new milestone achieved.
Well done by swimmers here in our third and final heat of the 800-meter freestyle. This does now begin to wrap up our session here this morning. Last couple competitors coming into the wall. And there we go, all 10 in, finishing off our time trial session. A very exciting night coming up tonight, Brittany.
Yeah, you do not want to miss it. We got Ilya trying to qualify for his first Olympics. We also have potential youngsters chasing in the 200 backstroke, and big names in the pool in the women's breaststroke with Kelsey Wog and Sydney Pickram.
Going to be very exciting. So this is the end of our session today. So 5:45 p.m. is our pre-show with a 6 p.m. start here at the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Trials. I'm Jason Pratt for Brittany McLean. Thanks for joining us. See you back here tonight.
Natation Canada tient à remercier ses partenaires. Swimming Canada would like to thank our partners. Comité olympique canadien, Canadian Olympic Committee, Comité paralympique canadien, Canadian Paralympic Committee, le gouvernement du Québec, the Government of Quebec. Mieux pour tous et toutes les façons dont Bell redonne aux communautés et au sport à travers le Canada. Bell for better and all the ways it gives back to communities and sports across Canada. Murtha Pools, toujours au cœur des sports aquatiques de haute performance. Murtha Pools, always at the heart of high-performance aquatic sports. La Société de sauvetage du Canada, votre partenaire de confiance en éducation aquatique et en prévention de la noyade. Life Saving Society Canada, your trusted partner in aquatic education and drowning prevention.
I have a disability, but I'm not fragile. My first big hit was a rush. It made me feel alive in a way only sports can. Because of partners like Val, I get to feel it on the world stage. And now I get to share that feeling with the next generation.
Program has